All right, welcome in. So it's not Friday night. It's not the Friday night live stream as it normally is. It's the Wednesday afternoon, or I guess Wednesday evening, depending on where you are. But yeah, it's a different time because I can't do it on Friday. So we're doing it now because it's the only time that I can. Um, and I guess that's just going to have to work. So what are we going to talk about today? Hopefully everybody out there is having a great afternoon, by the way. Hope you're all doing well. And as usual, I always ask as somebody to let me know if the volume in the stream, everything seems to be working fine. And I appreciate that. It always is, but I like to ask just to make sure. All right. So what are we going to talk about today? So we've got Anna Kasparian who's saying that, maybe she's not on the left anymore, which is interesting. Now, she's been making noises. Now, I don't think she's going to become a conservative. All right. But she's making noises. Maybe she's going to make some sort of departure. It looks like she's drifting away from what I would call the far left, from far left lunacy. But we'll take a look at that. I've got a few things to talk about with her. We've got Seth Macfarlane here, who just is such an elitist snob. Such an elitist snob. And he doesn't like people who aren't journalists, apparently. They're the only people who are allowed to have an opinion on anything. I don't think he likes free speech very much, which is a very common thing with the left these days. Let's see. Joe Rogan's talking about something here. We're going to talk about this Trump bloodbath hoax. It's just unbelievable. I've actually got a ton of stuff. Well, I don't know about a ton, but I've got a bunch of stuff further down on that too that we'll go through. We'll see if we can give you a little bit of a heads up on that. Yeah, here, like, we're going to take a look at some of the media talking. I mean, it's a complete and utter hoax, obviously. Do I even need to say that he was talking about the auto industry? I mean, but nothing shocks me anymore. It's shocking. It's shockingly dishonest from the media. But is anything really shocking these days? I don't know. We've seen so much. Ron Paul and General Flynn have warned of a black swan event in an election year. So, that'll be interesting. Let's take a look at that. Police officers in Scotland are being given training to target social media users. It's just terrifying what's happening in the UK. Across Europe, actually. There was a guy in, where was it? I think it was Belgium. He was just thrown in prison for a year for sharing posts and for sharing memes in like a private group. It's incredible. We'll talk about that a little bit. There's some stuff from Elon Musk here. And he's talking about free speech there. We've got lots of crazy stuff. We've got something from Billboard Chris here talking about the lunacy of the gender movement and what's actually happening. He's got a video here that we'll go through. Crazy people. We've got crazy TikTok far leftists. We always like to see them. Here's Candace Owens. This was an interesting one here. We'll go through that. Anyway, a bunch of stuff. You get the point. Got all kinds of different stuff to go over. All right. So Tim Pool tweeted this. Anna Kasparian comes out as far right. One of us. One of us. Now, I don't... he's joking, obviously, about far right, because as we know at this point already, it's well established that the left has been racing so far to the far left that anything to the left, even if you're just standing still, you seem like you're just getting increasingly far and more far right. Terrifying. It's terrifying people not agreeing with far left authoritarian lunatics. It's terrifying for them. But this is what I guess anybody who's been on the left and just says anything even remotely reasonable, they're going to be called far right, because anything that's not them is automatically the most reasonable things in the world are far right, according to the modern left. Here from, let's see, Sean Fitzgerald, actual justice warrior. A lot of people in America, and yes, that includes on the left, feel exactly like Anna Kasparian. in this mega rant. How does it make sense that you have a National Guard searching old ladies in the subway, but the 4 arrested for, get this, dismembering 2 people get released automatically without bail? So that's New York. That's in New York. Yeah, they were like, what do you even say? At what point is it's so dystopian? What do you even say to this? Well, Anna Kasparian's kind of taken aback by it. Let's hear what she has to say. And again, if anybody wants to let me know how the audio is, let me know in the chat, please. That would be great. Just want to make sure the audio is working well. So let me know in the chat if you can. Thank you.
Dismembering a corpse and hiding a corpse after dismembering it. Not bail eligible, not a serious crime. I'm not even kidding, guys. Like when Joy Behar outlined that case, I was like, she's crazy. This isn't a thing. This isn't real. This isn't real. So I looked it up. It's real, guys. It's real. Listen, if being on the left means supporting this, then I'm not on the left and I'm okay with that. So let me give you
That's every sane person who's actually been paying attention for the past, 10 years. That's every single sane person. Because it's not, it's as if it's like, liberals versus the far right. That's the narrative, like in the news, mainstream media, legacy media. It's just liberals, nice people with liberal ideas versus this far right. And everybody who doesn't agree with them, of course, says far right, far terrifying, far rightists, right? It's becoming increasingly clear, I think, to a lot of people, a number of people, millions of people, God knows how many people, but it's becoming increasingly clear that it is in fact sanity versus far left authoritarian lunacy. That's what's actually happening here. And Anna Kasparian seems to be coming to this conclusion. I mean, let's take a look here. Progressive journo Anna Kasparian unleashes on left's obsession with garbage identity politics. She says, I'm done with it. That was August 3rd, 2023. She says the identitarian stuff by nature divides us and leads to more fights, more conflict, even among us, she said during Monday's episode of the show. Well, she's been obviously witnessing the left canceling each other, denouncing each other for some, for some imagined, or I don't know, maybe even real heresy. I mean, what is a heresy in left? It's not agreeing with another leftist on anything, right? But she's been witnessing, her other leftist friends being denounced. And really, they get denounced when they say something rational, something reasonable. That's when it becomes a problem. And I think, like, if somebody were to say, like, I don't know about this whole sex changes for children thing. That sounds crazy. That's going to get you denounced. That's going to be a problem. And what about this? Anna Kasparian, this is from February 5th, 2023, talking to Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro from the Daily Wire. Quote, I get so much flack for saying this. Anna Kasparian talks failed leftist policies with Ben Shapiro. Quote, it's insanely cruel to watch people die on our streets and give yourself a pat on the back because you think you did something compassionate. Yeah, pretty much any like really liberal city. I mean, it's a bunch of elitist snobs who have useless degrees, many of them, who, are patting themselves on the back for how compassionate, how empathetic they are, how good they are, how they're on the right side of history as they step over bodies. At the very least, just walk past the bodies on the side of the road. Half the time, you can't tell whether they're actually even alive or not. It's how tragic it is in, left-wing cities at this point. It's not even just like big cities. It's actually even small towns this has come to now. It's really tragic and awful and inhuman. And it's, Anna Kasparian apparently is noticing that. Again, I'm not saying she's going to become a right-winger. She's going to support Trump or anything like that. The host but she's at least, I think, starting to she's reached that line, it seems, or she's getting close to that line, which everybody has, where the consequences of fashionable politics and policies actually starts to affect them personally. So I should say, Antipop says, gotta hide those corpses. Oh, God. Yeah, it's genuinely, you're talking about that. Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to the video. But yeah, there are some people where there is no line. I should say that. Like in Canada, there's the Truanon, what we call Truanon, who will vote. Trudeau could say his campaign promise in the next election could be that he will force every Canadian to live in a cave or like a hole in the ground that they have to dig themselves to fight climate change. And there are still people, probably billions of people, that would still vote for him, right? So there are people that are just beyond hope. But I think most people do have a line where when the consequences of their vote actually starts to affect them, when it will actually matter, it will change the way they think. They'll go, okay, enough of that. Enough of these luxury beliefs I've been having, right? This is fucked up now. I think we're going to stop. The host told Shapiro she was assaulted while walking her dog in her own neighborhood. As she walked by two men who were on drugs and appearing homeless, one of the men grabbed her while she bent over to clean up after her dog and repeatedly thrust, no, I can't say that on YouTube. Yeah. I quote, I have to think that, quote, I have to think about that at least twice a day when I take my dog out for a walk. Yes, it is traumatizing, she said, adding, what's making it worse, though, is that I'm the bad guy for sharing this story and saying, hey, we can't just let this kind of stuff happen. We need to find real solutions for it. Yeah, she was immediately denounced by the other lefties, by the hardcore left base of the Young Turks, the show that she's on. They like it. They have no problem with it. Is she starting to, I think she's starting to wake up to the fact that a lot of her audience wants that. They're fine with it. It's perfectly okay for them. So this is all before. This is from last year. And here's from now. And again, I don't think she's going to turn into a right-winger. I don't think she's going to join the Daily Wire. But it's fascinating to see somebody who's been so entrenched in far-left politics and encouraging people to vote for insane things for so long. It's fascinating to see them come into conflict with these same things that they've been saying, these same things that they've been preaching, when it affects their life or when it just becomes just clearly insane. So let's continue. And she's talking about how these guys in New York were released without bail after being arrested for dismembering people. New York.
The details of the case.
It doesn't mean that.
Okay, I don't know. Let me give you the details.
On the left. We're all on the left. We don't want people dismembering.
Actually, we're going to have to let's start over again here.
Dismembering a corpse and hiding a corpse after dismembering it. Not bail eligible. Not a serious crime. I'm not even kidding, guys. Like when Joy Behar outlined that case, I was like, she's crazy. This isn't a thing. This isn't real. This isn't real. So I looked it up. It's real, guys. It's real. Listen, if being on the left means supporting this, then I'm not on the left and I'm okay with that. So let me give you the details of the case.
It doesn't mean that.
Okay, I don't know. Let me give.
It does mean that. It does. Where have you been? It does mean that. It clearly does mean that. These are the consequences of the policies you've been advocating for. This is what it means. The hardcore leftist base likes this. They're fine with it. They're the same people that told Anna Kasparian not to talk about what happened to her because it was inconvenient. And because, I don't know, I guess her privilege or something, she's not allowed to complain about being assaulted. Yes, that is what it means. He's completely full of shit.
Give you the
Bayhar's
details.
on the left. We're all on the left. We don't want people dismembering folks getting released. Only a couple
Some
of
do,
lunatic.
some do, some do.
I know. What I was in the middle of saying is only a couple of lunatic activists are like, yeah, we're pro dismemberment guys being let go. Okay.
What do you mean, like the people who voted in the people who changed the laws so that those people could be let go? Just those fringe people? Doesn't sound that fringe to me. Doesn't sound like a few fringe lunatics. That sounds like that sounds like the policy of the Democratic Party in New York. I mean, what else is it exactly?
Whatever,
These
you
poor
don't represent the
criminals
left
who
at all.
dismembered bodies. It's so unfair to put them in prison. Okay, let me give you the details of the actual case, okay? So 4 people were arrested in New York after body parts were found in Long Island. Okay, dismembered body parts. The victims were, 2 people from Yonkers, older individuals. Suffolk County Police say 44-year-old Stephen Brown, 38-year-old Jeffrey Mackey, 40-year-old Amanda Wallace, and 33-year-old Alexis Neves were charged with concealment of a corpse, tampering with physical evidence, and hindering prosecution. They have not been charged with murder. Prosecutors told a judge there was so much blood in the pipes, sink, shower, and toilet of the Railroad Avenue home in Amityville where the suspects were arrested that it was deemed uninhabitable. Police said they confiscated meat cleavers, butcher knives, flesh, and body parts. Attorneys for Brown and Mackey admitted that their clients lived in that home where the body parts and all that blood was found, but denied chopping up the 59-year-old woman and 53-year-old man whose last known address was in Yonkers. Wallace also lived with Brown and Mackey in Amityville. Police.
Yeah, and none of that happened by accident. Like Cenk Uygur there he wants you to think it's not that nobody voted for this. Nobody wants just a few fringe lunatics. Well, it seems to be systemic, doesn't it? Doesn't sound like a few fringe lunatics can do that. It sounds like a lot of lunatics working together with power and authority can do that. You know, like the people that you encourage other people to vote for, to run their lives, to run their communities. It's really quite crazy. Antipop says, need a bigger dog. Yep, multiple dogs, multiple very large dogs, and also, I might add, a sane society. Anyway, let's continue.
Said that Knives is homeless. Okay, all 4 pleaded not guilty. The judge released them without bail. They were fitted with GPS monitoring and must report in-person probation and surrender their passports.
I don't care about their passports.
Dude, guys, like what? Okay, so did further research because I just couldn't believe it. Here's more. With 2019 state reforms, mutilation and disposal of murdered corpses are among crimes that are no longer bail eligible. The DA said the 4 went to barbaric lengths to cover the crime. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing, Cenk? What are we doing? What are we doing? Someone tell me, what the F are we doing?
Yeah, look, no one signed up for this. I don't know.
Yes, you did. Yes, they did. This is a result of the policies that you all advocated for. Yes, you did. These are the consequences of your policy. Maybe you should have thought about that. I don't think Cenk cares anyway. It doesn't matter. But Anna Kasparian is obviously just like, she's found her line. She's found her line where it's just too much. You know, like letting people out without bail after they're arrested and seem pretty guilty of murdering and dismembering people. And lots of their audience will like that too. They'll be just fine with it. Why? Because that's the road, that's the primrose path that she herself has led these people down by advocating for far left policies no matter what, constantly. Now, again, Anna Kasparian seems to be waking up a bit. You know, over the last couple of years, she seems to be finding that line where it's just too much. It's too crazy. You can't rationalize it anymore. It's too bananas. Anyway, let's let her continue here.
How the hell any of these laws passed? I went to every progressive conference there was over the last 20 years. I never heard a single person saying, why don't we let the actual criminals go? Hey, if someone butchers someone and chops them up into little pieces, let's do the kind of criminal justice reform where they would be able to walk out free.
Yeah, come at me right now.
As if it all just happened by accident. As if it has nothing to do with the policies they themselves have been advocating for, without thinking about it, just heedlessly. Oh, that sounds nice. That sounds left-wing. That sounds progressive. That's all that matters, by the way, for the modern left, right? For the vast majority of them, they're not thinking about it at all. It's just what sounds progressive, you know? Well, let's reform bail. Let's do that. Because I heard one story about somebody. Let's just reform it. We don't need to think about it too much. Just police are bad. All police are bad. Some of them are, as a matter of fact. But to them, all police are bad. All laws apparently are bad. Everything's unjust. Everything is systemically racist or phobic in some way, right? So let's just heedlessly change these laws. This is what they've advocated for. It all felt progressive. Guess what? It doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work for people who don't want to get killed and dismembered. Sorry, I have to qualify that. Apparently, it's not working for Anna Kasparian anymore either.
Tell me I'm the bad guy because I want these people who dismembered corpses and tried to conceal the evidence in prison. Come at me and tell me I'm the bad guy. Come at me.
I don't look, guys.
Insane. You guys are insane. Anyone who thinks this is okay is insane. And everyone else in New York has to suffer the consequences of this with random bag checks at the subway by National Guard troops.
Insane.
Dismembering?
Insane, she says. If only there'd been any other people mentioning that the policies they've been advocating for were insane. If only. We've been saying for a long time that right now it is sane versus insane. It is sane versus far left authoritarian lunacy. These are the inevitable results of far left Marxist policies. They are. This is what you're going to get. She seems to have realized it at this point. I don't know. Will she change? Will she get a slot on the Daily Wire? Maybe. I mean, the thing is, if she wants to go over to the, what we're calling the conservative space, whatever that is, I mean, anybody who's just not far left, even just like traditional liberals now are considered by the left. I would even say like CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, they all consider just traditional liberals to be far left, to be far right now. Anything that isn't, progressive is far right. So there's actually a lot of space. I mean, once you've been denounced and cast out from I guess something like the Young Turks, which that may happen with her. Cenk may decide that she's getting people to think too much and he's not liking it. But once you've been cast out from a place like that, there's actually loads of room for you. On the other side of that, which is, it's what is conservative now? It's traditional liberals. It's just moderate conservatives, fiscal conservatives. You've got conservatives that are, more socially liberal or libertarian, fiscally conservative. There's lots of room there. She could actually fit in. If she were genuine and real, it seems like she is being. Do I expect her to leave the Young Turks? No. But if she keeps talking like this, Cenk might want to get rid of her. Again, she's giving people too much to think about here. She's giving her audience way too much to think about. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? I think it's kind of bonkers. She's talking about, when you just think about what she's actually talking about here, 4 people being released without bail after being arrested for murdering and dismembering people. That's pretty crazy, right? It seems to be plenty of evidence connecting these people too. It seems like it would be the reasonable thing to do. seems reasonable. I mean, when you've got a case where you've got people living in a house where people were murdered and there's blood everywhere, that seems like a reasonable accommodation for society, right? I'm not actually a huge fan of like people having to pay bail for some crime that they haven't been proven guilty of at this point. But I mean, there has to be reasonable accommodation for people who are accused of truly horrific crimes, who look like they are an imminent danger to those around them. So, yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? Seems crazy to me. Totally crazy. Actually, let's see what the internet has to say about it. Cenk still shilling for terrorists. The solution to all of this is to just vote Trump. Like, literally, that's all they'd have to do to get what they want, but they won't. Yeah, but I mean, the executive only has so much power when it comes to the states. I mean, New York can still be insane, pretty much to an incredible extent. I mean, I think the state controls like bail laws, right? So they can still be crazy. They can still put their own citizens at constant risk all the time. They can still turn their state into a far left dystopian hellhole. Cenk is like, no, you're still left. She's like, I don't know. It sounds like she's maybe changing. Maybe it's not going to be that comfortable of a place for her anymore on the Young Turks. Well, we know what happened. She says it right in the video. She did her own research. It's the first step to moving to the right. It's only a matter of time. That's interesting. True believers finally starting to realize they got scammed. Well, Cenk is, I think, I'm not sure that Cenk Uyghur, whatever the hell his name is, I'm not sure that he's being, that he's arguing in good faith. Let's see what else we got. Frank O'Connor here says she's going to be a hoot at the next CPAC. Wouldn't that be something? I mean, that would be quite the reversal if she really does go all the way, all the way. We'll see. I mean, she seems genuine in her concern. So, I'm going to take her at her word here. Now, let's see. Hold on one second. All right, let's go on. Let's keep going. So let's see. So from Myth Informed here, Seth Macfarlane doesn't like social media because it gives a voice to people that didn't go to college for journalism. Nothing elitist about that at all. Let's take a look.
Fox doing all these other things, and then social media comes in, and I think journalists are fucking incredible.
Yes, so do I.
If somebody who writes an entire
I think journalists are fucking incredible. Okay. All right. Let's that's a great start right there.
Article about how much you suck, but they like fucking went to college, got a degree, earned it. Take the time to go through all the things they don't particularly like about it. Amazing. But then when you give that same power to every person in the universe with a Twitter account, has that ever affected you?
You just said it more eloquently than I.
How credulous are these people? Like, how credulous is this guy? He thinks they're trying to tell you the truth. So 1 second. I think we're going to go. I got a chat here. I just want to go over. I'm not from James Curtis. I'm not sure I could make a fair comment. I came in a little late. I think Kasparian could be playing the other side to make their show more interesting. I haven't watched the Turks. So, I mean, that's a possibility that it's actually just planned, right? That maybe they're trying to, I don't know. I have no idea. if their views are up or down or what's going on with them, if they're losing money or not losing money. I have no idea. I suppose that's possible, but she does seem kind of sincere in this, and she has been moving in this direction, as I showed you, for a year and a half now, a couple of years. She seems to be waking up a little bit. So, I don't know. But it's a good point, though. It's certainly possible. Let's continue with these guys here, though.
I ever could. It is true. Like I am also I will defend to the death the presence and existence of journalists. As you said earlier, print media is in trouble. It is. Yeah, I mean, look.
Now, remember this for later. He said journalists there. Journalists. He would defend to the death journalists. Not entirely true, as we'll see in a little bit, but let's continue.
The way I look at it, like when you look at a New York Times article on Instagram.
That's funny. That's a funny sentence.
Yeah, but they do have an Instagram. And you look at the headline and you read it and you maybe click on the link and you read the story. That story, whether you agree with it or not, whether you connect with it or not, has been written by somebody who did the research, who did the work, who did the footwork, who
did the research, did the footwork. You mean they read other people's articles and then repeated it? Because that's pretty much what they do. But anyway, let's continue.
Put in the hours to at least make an attempt to communicate the truth to their audience. And yeah, they're not perfect.
How credulous do you have to be? How credulous? I mean, I don't know. Let's see. WMDs in Iraq. New York Times talked about that. Russia hoax went on for years. There was Officer Sicknick. They said that he was killed by January 6 rioters. Like 8 months later, they corrected that, which nobody saw. What did they have to say about, when Biden was talking about how if you got the jab, you wouldn't get sick and you couldn't transmit? I didn't say anything. They didn't do any legwork on any of this stuff, as far as I can tell. As far as I can tell, they were just pushing a narrative, an approved narrative. And that's what it feels like to me, is that their job is to spout approved narratives. And that seems like all that they actually do. But let's continue.
They're not
still they're just their opinion.
They're not perfect. If they make a mistake, and they do make their share of mistakes.
Shout out Complex. Y'all fuck up all the time. Anyway, continue.
There are retractions. There are admissions of that.
Yes, retractions 60 pages in that nobody ever sees and that come months later. But sure.
That's what separates Fox News. Fox News is in it for the dough. That's as simple.
Wait a second. I thought he said he would defend to the life of journalists. I thought he said he was going to defend journalists. It turns out it's not all journalists, though. It's not all journalists. It turns out it's just journalists who tell him what he wants to hear. Those are the ones he's going to defend. Continue.
Simple as I can put it. They're in it for the money. And they make a lot of money and they get a lot of viewers. Is it worth it? Wouldn't be to me. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night.
Definitely not.
But it makes them a lot of money.
Complex.
And
well, they say things that sometimes aren't popular in Hollywood. I mean, Seth Macfarlane here, he wouldn't be able to sleep at night if he said things that weren't approved by every single person around him. If he weren't just regurgitating things that he'd heard on CNN and MSNBC, he wouldn't be able to sleep at night. He can sleep at night well, knowing that that he believes, and he'll regurgitate the things that the teleprompter readers read off teleprompters on CNN and MSNBC. He sleeps like a baby at night. Let's continue.
When you look at legitimate journalism, I go back to what I said. You look at a New York Times article on Instagram, and then you look at the comments, and everyone thinks they're an expert. Everybody thinks that they know better than the person who did the legwork.
They don't do any legwork. It's obvious they're not doing that. They're wrong about so much, right? Lab Leak, that was just some crazy comic book. That was some crazy comic book story. Crazy. They're not doing any legwork. They're just repeating things they're told to repeat. That's it. They're pushing the approved narrative. That's all that it is. There's no legwork involved there.
Everybody thinks they know better than the person who put in the hours, did the research, did the interviews, did the follow-up, did the best that they could to make sure.
If you did 4 hours of your own research every night, you would be better informed than anybody at the New York Times. You would. You'd be doing more work than they do. But let's continue.
Sure that everything that they put into print is factual. And maybe they missed something. Maybe they fucked up, but they did their best.
Yeah.
And then, you know, me, Johnny Spaghetti stain on his shirt, writes a comment. That's bullshit. It's shocking to me that any press outlet just.
But what if the thing they're telling you is clearly false and anybody can see that? Any sane person can recognize that. Well, these claims that Trump has been a Russian agent since the 80s, that seems unlikely. Johnny's spaghetti stain on his shirt doesn't need to be a journalist to know. That's ridiculous, right? Doesn't need to know. Johnny's spaghetti stain on his shirt doesn't need to be doesn't need to be an expert to know that maybe sex changes for children is insane. Johnny's spaghetti shirt doesn't need to be an expert to know that. Anyway, let's continue.
They consent to comments under there because there are studies that have shown that if you read an article on social media, you process it a certain way. Once you read the comments and you start absorbing the inevitable extremism that comes with the comments that are kind of reduce that to black and white.
Extremism being anything that disagrees with the preferred or the accepted narrative.
Your perception of the original article is affected. That you go back to the original article and you look at it in a more extreme, more polarized way.
Fox.
Maybe a more critical way. Maybe that's a better way to put it. Maybe, maybe I'll look into this a bit more, but you don't want to do that because you don't have a degree in journalism. So it would be a complete waste of time. Your brain just simply couldn't handle it. I find this astonishing, this level of elitism. It's grotesque. This is the typical leftist attitude towards just the regular person, right? Too stupid. You can't possibly understand. You need to be told by us. I'm Seth Macfarlane. You think that I don't know? You think somebody in my position wouldn't understand, wouldn't be able to be the arbiter? Isn't the arbiter of truth? I mean, it's genuinely astonishing. Antipop says, do comedians go to comedy school to get comedy degrees? Well, I think probably Seth MacFarlane would probably say that they should now at this point. You don't really need to be an expert to pick out the obvious absurdities that we're being fed these days. Let's see. Let's see. James Curtis says, I think a long time ago, there were travel budgets for news journalists. Those budgets were the first to go in order to increase profits. Then after a while, it just didn't matter to editors. Yeah. Yeah. Now most of it really is just repeating. It's just copying other people's articles. And if what's in it is true or false, doesn't really matter, because as long as it's in the right direction, as long as it feels like progressive and left wing, what 80% of the media in the US and in Canada is left wing? As long as it feels left wing, it doesn't really matter. As long as it feels like it's going in the right direction, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, let's continue. Let's get on to this Joe Rogan. You guys got to give me, how long is this? Not quite long. All right. Give me 1 minute, you guys, and I'll be right back, okay? It's going to take a quick break for 1 minute. All right, I'm back. Thanks for waiting, everybody. Before we go on to this Joe Rogan, let's just go to the comments on this Seth Macfarlane thing. Let's see. This coming from a guy that isn't a doctor and yet has been given jab advice for years. LOL. Well, that's a good point, isn't it? Let's see. They, quote, did the footwork. These celebrities are the worst people on the planet. Obviously, Seth does not know the history of journalists or journalism. Let's see. If he did, he would know that many years ago, people started out in journalism as cubs and beat writers, and were eventually promoted to journalists by their editors. Few, if any, ever went to college. Well, that's the thing. You don't work your way up from the mailroom anymore, anywhere. Now you need that degree. You need to go to the indoctrination center first. And they are all indoctrination centers. Like journalistic ethics. Do they even teach journalistic ethics anymore? Or are they just full on like Maoist training centers? I think it's closer to just full on Maoist training centers. I don't think they teach ethics anymore. That completely went out the window with Trump. Completely went out the window. They just decided it was their job to stop Trump from ever happening again. Anything like that from ever happening again. They talked about it openly, like the New York Times. And I'm sure that's something that Seth Macfarlane is all for. These modern left is not, they're not concerned with ethics. Let's see. James Curtis says, now AI will be writing all the articles. AI will say what you want, and you don't even have to pay them. Well, yeah. That's the development that's coming for sure. I'm not hearing the journalists freaking out as much as I thought they would over this. Because clearly that's going to be happening, right? I think a lot of videos on YouTube now are AI. It's definitely something that's coming. Which is terrifying as well, because, the AI eventually, I don't think it's there yet, but eventually it will become just, it will become a master manipulator at some point. Now you can kind of tell, there's still kind of that uncanny valley a lot of the time, but yeah, where it's going is going to be terrifying. Let's see. I went to college. I'm a journalism. Yeah. Yeah. This college thing is part of the elitism, right? It's their way of separating themselves from the unwashed masses. That's the thing that makes you valid. And I've been talking about, Don Lemon, that disastrous interview he did with Elon Musk. And you think, what is he doing? He's completely destroying his independent career here. It's crazy. And then his crazy demands of Musk with X, he wanted like equity in X and a free cyber truck and like $10 million or something ludicrous. I think what it is, when you watch that interview, and I put out a video on that, was it yesterday, the day before? When you watch that, to me, it feels like an audition to get back into legacy media again, where he's comfortable, where he's got his teleprompter in front of him, and somebody's inputting the things he's supposed to say into the teleprompter. He doesn't need to think at all. He can just so easily and seamlessly push the narrative that the producers want him to say, right? That the powers that be want him to put out, to express. And he strikes me as somebody who is probably never comfortable without like a corporate logo behind him. Because for him, that's making it, right? Being independent is not making it for him, right? He would look down on that. He's a snob. He would look down on that, being independent. That's the unwashed masses. He's got a corporate logo. on his side, right? That's how you know you've made it. It's like somebody who wrote a novel and they sent it to every publisher and they rejected it, and he refuses to self-publish, even though it's actually, you can actually make better money self-publishing these days, but won't do it because he's a snob. He or she is a snob, and they don't feel like that's, it doesn't matter if more people would see it. They don't get that sense of gratification of having the authority behind them and the approval of the gatekeeper. Anyway, I can't remember where I was going with that, but I'm pretty sure it made sense. All right, so what's going on here? Joe Rogan criticizes the corporate media's deceptive Trump bloodbath hoax and highlights the rise of independent media. This whole bloodbath hoax is just astonishing. I mean, just when you think they can't possibly go any lower, they go lower. This is what we're talking about. Here's Seth Macfarlane. Seth Macfarlane talking about
the universe,
the journalists. He'll defend the journalists, the people with the college degrees, the people that are pushing an obvious hoax, the bloodbath hoax. Trump is clearly talking about the auto industry. Clearly. This is why people hate the media. Again, the Seth MacFarlanes of the world, they can't possibly understand that, because I'm sure in his mind it's true. Right? The narrative, he's accepted the narrative, and now that's just it. Let's hear what Joe Rogan has to say about it.
I mean, I'm sure you're aware of this recent Donald Trump speech where he talked about a bloodbath.
Oh God, yeah.
And what the actual phrase was. See if you can find that, Jamie, because it's actually important to highlight how not just inaccurate, but it's just deceptive the media was in their depiction of what he said, and that they are taking this quote out of context and trying to say that there's going to be a civil war if he doesn't get elected, which is not what he was talking about at all. See, pull it up, because it's so disturbing that they would, first of all, that they would think that they could get away with it in this day and age with all the scrutiny and all the with social media and all the independent journalists that exist now, which is one of the more interesting things about the demise of corporate media, the demise in trust. Trust in corporate media is at an all-time low, and so this has led to a rise in true independent journalists, the real ones out there, the Matt Taibbi's, the Glenn Greenwalds, the people that are actually just trying to say what is really going on and what are the influences behind these things and why are these things happening.
So, I mean, what are the consequences for the media? The one consequence of losing the trust of the public is that fewer people watch. That doesn't seem to be dissuading them. I mean, nothing otherwise happens, right? They can still go to the same dinner parties, all the people involved, they all love each other and pat each other on the back. So the one cost is that fewer people watch, but I guess they're weighing that against, they keep the fanatics. So the people that are watching, they hold on to them by giving them increasingly deranged pictures of the world. What does the internet have to say about this? Elon Musk said true. Legacy media isn't going to be able to get away with this any longer. X is here now, along with citizen journalists. The deceptive bloodbath narrative was shut down almost immediately. But it wasn't, though. They kept going with it. Morning Joe was going on. He said, I understand. We're not stupid. I'm not stupid. You're not stupid. We know what he meant. Well, anybody who watched the full clip knows what he meant. He meant there's going to be a bloodbath in the auto industry, a term used constantly in terms of economics. Bloodbath is constantly used. Joe Scarborough, the thing is, he thinks you are an idiot. He certainly thinks his viewers are idiots. I've got a bunch more on this. Let's scroll down until we get to it. think we might be a little bit of ways. You can see all the other stuff we're going to talk about before we end this live stream. Here, Nancy Pelosi races to CNN to lie about Donald Trump and promote the bloodbath hoax. Let's take a listen.
Because he's even predicting a bloodbath. What does that mean? He's going to exact a bloodbath? There's something wrong here. How respectful I am of the American people and their goodness. But how much more do they have to see from him to understand?
See, she's counting on the viewers of CNN not making any effort whatsoever to just simply watch like a 10-second long clip, unedited. That's what they're counting on. Let's see. Describe NBC News in 2 words or less. Let's see. It says here, this is from 2022. Democrats at every level across the country are capitalizing on a potentially seismic shift in the political landscape that could upend what was to be a bloodbath of a midterm election for an otherwise disillusioned party. 2024, 3/17/2024. Former President Donald Trump vowed at a rally that there would be a bloodbath if he's not reelected in November. Just an out-and-out lie. Just an out-and-out lie. Let's see. Here's Maddow, it looks like. Donald Trump's use of bloodbath to describe the loss of jobs must have been super scary to a U.S. media that has never used it that way before. Well, let's take a look.
But as Politico.com reports tonight on the, quote, bloodbath at the RNC,
Headlines calling it a, quote, bloodbath.
be a bloodbath. Not only is it going to be a bloodbath, but after they leave New Hampshire, it's a bloodbath on her home turf. That's really tough.
Trump has left a lot of corpses in his wake. I mean, we can count the bodies.
As part of the, quote, MAGA drive to take over Maricopa County. And the headline refers to it as an impending bloodbath.
Columnist Charles Blow has a new piece for the New York Times entitled A Biden Bloodbath.
2018 midterms, you can bet that they 100% are fearing a slaughter. In fact, the word bloodbath and massacre come up frequently.
The Republican Party will be destroyed. It's going to be a bloodbath.
There's going to be a bloodbath one way or the other.
Bloodbath for Bernie Sanders.
It's been a bloodbath. They're shaping up to be a bloodbath.
Head off a bloodbath in next year's crucial midterm.
Off-year elections are often.
Wow, it's terrifying seeing the media calling for all those bloodbaths, right? That's obviously what they're doing. They're obviously calling for bloodbaths by using the word. This is why nobody likes the media anymore, except, the fanatics, those who want to be indoctrinated. Those are even the people that watch like CNN or MSNBC or NBC News. Some of them must realize, the incoherence of the message that they're getting, but still don't care because it doesn't matter, because if it feels progressive, if it feels politically correct, if it feels like what they're supposed to believe, they'll just go with it because it's just easier. It's the path of least resistance. Just keep going with it. Let's see. Have we got anything else on the bloodbaths? No, I think that's it. So yeah, it's I say it all the time. It's like alternate universe stuff. It's so surreal. It's so incredibly fake that how could anybody actually believe it? Yet there are people that do, including people like Seth Macfarlane. Because all those journalists say they all have college degrees. So obviously everything they say is real. All right. So is this the line here? Let's just check this out.
Unbelievable when I see it going. But I got to know all these people. They're very smart, very streetwise. And I would do the same thing. If I had prisons that were teeming with MS-13 and all sorts of people that they've got to take care of for the next 50 years, right? Young people, they're in jail for years. And if you call them people, I don't know if you call them people. In some cases, they're not people, in my opinion. But I'm not allowed to say that because the radical left says that's a terrible thing to say. They say you have to vote against him because did you hear what he said about humanity? I've seen.
Yeah, that was the other hoax too, that he said that immigrants weren't people. So you just heard it there. He's talking about murderers and the worst prisoners being released by like Venezuela and Haiti and where not, going to the United States. That's who he's talking about. If you were their victim, you wouldn't call them people either. But anyway, let's continue.
Humanity, and these are bad, these are animals, okay? And we have to stop it. We can't have another Lakin. We have so many people being hurt so badly and being killed. They're sending their prisoners to see us. They're bringing them right to the border, and they're dropping them off, and we're allowing them to come in. And these are tougher than anybody we've got in the country. These are hardened criminals, and we've got hundreds of thousands of them. And we're not going to take it. We're just not going to take it. They are destroying our country. I'm telling
you. It really is bizarre. I mean, and it's obviously the policy of the President of the United States of America to flood the United States with just whoever, just as many as they can get. Who cares who they are? Doesn't matter. I mean, flying them in. It's incredible. It's alternate reality stuff. You'd never believe it. You would have never believed it 20 years ago. Just that's not going to happen. That's crazy. Suing Texas to prevent them from stopping people from crossing the border illegally. Nobody would ever have believed that. Not 20 years ago. That would have seemed, I mean, Trump's policies they don't sound all that different from the Democrats 20 years ago. It's truly astonishing. Something insane is happening. And really what it is that here, I see from Konstantin Kisin, I see the mainstream media are lying about Trump and clipping him out of context again. It's amazing how used they are. It's amazing how used they are to having a monopoly on information that even now, when their lies are guaranteed to be immediately debunked, they carry on anyway. Pure arrogance. Yeah, they're continuing on with this not people hoax and also with the bloodbath hoax. They keep going, completely heedless. They don't care. So James Curtis to say there, yeah, a quote from Joe Biden. Poor kids are just as smart as white kids. But everybody else is the racist, apparently. All right, let's move on. Within the last 48 hours, both Ron Paul and General Flynn have warned of a coming black swan event. These two men have been pretty accurate over the last decade. It might behoove us to listen. The enemy will not roll over and allow Trump to win. They have something planned. Yeah, it's frightening, actually.
We're reaching this point where some sudden thing is going to happen. I believe in that theory of the black swan.
Yes.
It's going to pop up, and it's not going to be controllable. But people, you ask, what can they do? I think the most important thing is understand what's going on.
How about this one?
Mostly devastating effects. So
we're reaching this
things, we call them black swan events, right? Black swan events are things that nobody imagined could occur, and yet they did, right? And they and then they have these incredibly, mostly devastating effects. So,
point where,
well, I think it's already been demonstrated that there are no limits to what they are willing to do to prevent Trump from being president again. All right. So, the Democrat Party, the deep state, the intelligence agencies, there is no limit to what they're willing to do. I think they've demonstrated that. Their intention is to not allow Trump to be president. I think that's what they're talking about here, right? Flynn and Ron Paul here. They're talking about something happening. something happening, some black swan event, something that can be used to justify keeping Trump out of the White House in some way. I don't see how much clearer it can be, right? That there are no limits on this. You know, they have drawn a line in the sand. Trump is not going to get back into the White House again. They are not going to allow that. I think for obvious reasons, actually. They don't want him having power over them. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of terrifying stuff. Let's move on, though. How about this? This is it's kind of bad news all over the world. Police officers in Scotland are being given training to target social media posts, including retweets of material deemed, quote, threatening and abusive. And I wonder who's going to decide what's threatening and abusive. Let's expand this. Under the country's new hate crime law, actors and comedians are not given a free pass to make jokes about sensitive subjects that offend people either. Well, you know, leftist authoritarians or any kind of authoritarian, they don't like being laughed at. They see laughter as a powerful weapon against them. They tend to want to crush it. The new training provided to officers, which was leaked to the Herald, requires police officers to go after anyone who produces material deemed, quote, threatening and abusive, which can also be communicated through public performance of a play. So obviously a comedian's going to count in that. Under the new hate crime law, people who make fun of or misgender trans people, make racial jokes or criticisms of certain religions, or criticize migrants can be prosecuted. Now, this is only going to go one way, of course, right? So there's going to be a group that's not protected under this whatsoever. It's going to be like, you know, Scottish people won't be protected. Will only go one way, as it always does. The difference in ways in which a person may communicate material to another person are by displaying, publishing, and distributing the material, for example, on a sign, on the internet, through websites, blogs, podcasts, social media, etc., either directly or by forwarding or repeating material that originates from a third party through printed media, such as magazine publications or leaflets. The hate crime law goes on to state that giving, sending, showing, or playing the material to another person, listing examples such as through online streaming, by email, playing a video through public performance of a play. So repeat a joke you heard online, or show someone a spicy meme or commentary of a transgender person or mass migration on your live stream, and you too will be arrested. Yeah, this is Orwellian. This is Orwell. This is insane. I mean, let's see. Displaying, publishing, or distributing the material on a sign, on the internet, blogs, podcasts, social media, through printed media. Giving, sending, showing, or playing the material to other person. For example, just another person, through online streaming, by email, just sending an email. I mean, like, yeah, they want to convict people of hate crimes. They want to control people's thoughts. Clearly. I mean, what else could this possibly be? What else could it be? This is Scotland. Now, in Canada, I'm going to keep talking about this. I've made a bunch of videos on it already. For some reason, they don't seem to be getting seen by anybody. It's almost as if they're being suppressed or something by YouTube. But on the online harms bill in Canada, Bill C-63, which is absolutely dystopian and insane. It's essentially, it's a Trojan horse bill. So it's actually got 4 different things that it does in it. One of the things is, it has laws regarding like content of abusing children, CP, that sort of thing. Already illegal. Of course, everybody's fine. Nobody wants that stuff, right? We want to get rid of that in any way that we can. It's awful. We don't want that. That should be a separate bill. It's not clear that it's even actually needed because obviously that's all illegal in Canada anyway, right? But they use this as a Trojan horse to bring in the other stuff. The other stuff like human rights, like giving human rights tribunals the power to award financial awards to people who complain about hate speech online. So they want to set up this snitch network in Canada where anybody in Canada can anonymously make a complaint against you to a human rights commission, and then the human rights commission can then force you to be dragged in front of a human rights tribunal, which is a kangaroo court in Canada. It's not a criminal court. It's a kangaroo court, where there's no real rules of evidence. There's no, guilty and proven, innocent until proven guilty, or, guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. It's just what the far left activists at the kangaroo court think. So if they don't like your views, you're guilty. Human Rights Tribunal, by the way, has in Canada, they have a near 100% conviction rate for hate speech. So if you're in there, if you're dragged in there, and of course, now this is all at your own cost. You've got to pay for your own lawyers and stuff, right? The person who made the complaint doesn't, but you've got to pay for your own lawyers, right? And once you're in, you're basically guaranteed to be found guilty. So you can be then forced to pay up to $20,000 to the anonymous person who made the complaint. You don't know who it is. You have no idea. Somebody just saw something that you wrote on social media, probably took it out of context. Human Rights Tribunal is definitely almost certain to find you guilty because they are far left activists, right? So that now you might have to pay $20,000 to just some anonymous person, plus $50,000 to the government, because of course they're going to want a piece, right? This is just an activist industry. This is a new industry for far left activists in Canada. Human rights tribunals are far left kangaroo courts. So it will be entirely political. Plus, on top of that, they might decide that you're a threat to commit a future hate crime, online hate speech crime, in which case they will, again, just a speech crime. So they might decide that you might do that in the future, and then you can be under house arrest with an electronic monitoring device. They can tell you whether you can have a beer or not. They might tell you can't have a drink for 12 months while you're basically under house arrest. They can restrict internet use, tell you who you can and cannot communicate with. It's fucking insane. So we see Scotland going insane, Canada going insane. Now, the bill hasn't passed in Canada yet. It's not certain that it will. It's certainly completely unconstitutional. So we'll have to see. But, these are cautionary tales. I mean, it's happening pretty much everywhere. We know the First Amendment is totally under assault in the United States. Yeah, it's time for people to wake up, isn't it? Let's see. J Ham says, if we don't stop this now, it's going to be nearly impossible to roll it back. Videos like this are helping to spread awareness. Well, that's my goal, is to spread awareness. Because, in Canada, CBC ain't going to tell you about it. They just want to keep it secret. They just want it to pass quietly with nobody knowing. And, I'm sorry, to a large extent, it's working. I'm sorry to say. I think the number of people in Canada who understand what this bill actually does, it's certainly in the single digits. People have no idea. They just hear, oh, online hate. I don't like hate speech. Nobody's telling them, hey, your neighbor who's maybe in some financial trouble might just decide, maybe I'll go through my neighbor's. Or I remember they did this post 5 years ago, because this is retroactive as well, by the way. Remember they did a post 5 years ago and said something that was fine in liberal circles back then, but now it's basically new Hitler stuff. Maybe I'll make a complaint. I'm having a bit of trouble with money, I've got a gambling problem. Maybe I'll make some complaints. I could get up to $20,000 a pop. People don't understand. Like, you're going to have to, because they're not being told. Nobody else is telling them this. I mean, there's independent channels in Canada, like mine, that are telling people this, but the mainstream media is not telling them. They're not saying, like, this goes through, like, you're pretty much going to have to erase all of your social media. And you're going to have to be very, very careful what you say and make sure that it's not something that's going to go from being fine today to, again, new Hitler in 2 years, because it moves pretty quick these days, doesn't it? I think there's a lot of things you could have said, say, on Twitter 10 years ago and been a liberal in good standing, that today not going to happen. All right. Actually, I want to see what the internet's saying about this. Libs of TikTok, this is crazy. It really is. Let's see. Remember that a truly totalitarian society is not one in which the apparatus makes you affirm the lies they believe, but one in which you must shout agreement to what you and they both know to be false. Yeah, Buck Sexton. That's apparently a quote from him. Let's see. In the meantime, Scotland has the highest rate of alcoholism and drug abuse in Europe. And in some towns, and in some towns, the life expectancy is third world levels. But they hurty words are bad. Yeah. Well, you got to remember, the modern left is not about it's not about actual empathy or helping people or anything like that. It's about burning down society and getting control. It's all about control. That's all. I mean, just look at the results of any far left policy anywhere, right? Look at San Francisco, right? That's the model that they want to. That's the model that that big tech wants to spread everywhere. The entire world. That's the model that they want. What do you get with far left immigration policy? Well, you get open borders. You end up being flooded with millions of people, like in Canada, that the system simply cannot take. That the system wasn't designed to handle. All of a sudden you've got 20-hour waits in the ER. You got people dying because they can't get surgeries. Nobody can afford a house. Young people in Canada, the vast majority of young people in Canada are never going to own a home unless they inherit it. And even then, are they going to be able to afford the property taxes? I mean, it's getting really crazy. Makes everything worse. And the solution is always more far left crazy. All right, let's keep going. Let's see. Here's Elon Musk talking about. Well, let's listen to it.
There's a reason that we have the First Amendment, and it's important to think about that. Why does it exist? And it exists because people came from countries where they could not speak freely, where if they did speak their mind, they would be imprisoned or killed. That's why they were so concerned about freedom of speech. Is because they didn't have it in the countries they came from. And in many places in the world, maybe most places, you don't have freedom of speech. And, there's certainly, no country has the protection on speech that the United States does, not even Canada. So that's it's something we should really take pride in and seek to preserve. Because I think that the bedrock of democracy is freedom of speech. Because if you can't say what you want to say, then I think that's essentially political coercion. So anyway, there's a reason why there was a high urgency to amend the Constitution with the First Amendment. It was because if you don't have freedom of speech, you got nothing.
But hate speech. But what about hate speech? Do they hate speech? I wonder. How much do they hate hate speech? How much do they hate the people who say hate speech? The whole thing is completely incoherent, for one thing. What counts as hate speech to any leftist government is just anything that disagrees with them. Obviously, we just watch that every single day. If you disagree with, mass immigration policies that are clearly hurting your country, that your country clearly cannot handle, the infrastructure cannot handle, the economy cannot handle, right? That's hate. If you say, I don't think that children can consent to puberty blockers, that seems insane to me. That's hate now, right? Anything you disagree with is hate for the leftists. So, I think that personally, nobody has a right to not be offended. I think that people should be free to say things that I find abhorrent, right? Because if I take away their right to say that, I'm taking my own right to speak my mind away as well. I'm taking away my right to say anything that isn't officially approved by the regime. James Curtis says hate speech is whatever they don't like. And that is clearly true. Clearly true. Now, especially when their ideas, the things that they like, are fucking bananas. Like drag shows for children, for instance. James Curtis says men cannot have a baby. They consider that to be hate speech. In fact, I believe they consider that to be genocide. They think that, not giving children sex changes is genocide. They genuinely believe this. This is what they say. I mean, the question is, how much do they really believe it? And how much do they use it as a weapon, use language as a weapon? No, because it appears that leftists the modern leftist no longer uses speech to communicate. It is just purely to manipulate. And here's another point as well. If they truly were worried about hate speech, they would have to give up their entire ideology. Like DEI, that would have to go. Gender theory, that would all have to go. All the stuff about straight white men, which like 90% of it actually does qualify as hate speech. Singling out certainly a single race of people for all of the world's ills. This insanely ahistoric belief that white people are uniquely guilty of all of the world's sins and everybody else was just living in these Edenic paradises before those evil white people came along. It's completely ahistoric. The world has been a terrible place. And in fact, outside of the Western world, in many places, it's still a terrible place. Send a feminist to Saudi Arabia for a year. Send a feminist to Afghanistan for a year. See how she likes the patriarchy there, right? Will she even think there's a patriarchy here anymore? This mythical, magical patriarchy that they seem to be convinced exists here. Well, there's a real one over in Afghanistan. Go there for a year. See how you like it. Anyway, forgot where I was going with that. Somebody remind me. Yeah, I remember. So yeah, if they really wanted to get rid of hate speech, they'd have to get rid of their own ideology. Again, singling out one race of people as uniquely guilty for all of history's crimes. That sounds like something we've heard before. That usually doesn't end well, does it? Now, and of course, it's utterly ridiculous. They think that punctuality was invented by white people to oppress the world. They think that white people invented slavery. They actually believe that. Yeah, all the nonsense about straight white men constantly. It's on the news. So Joy Reid is constantly going on about how evil straight white men are. To me, that sounds like hate speech to me. I mean, I personally think she should be free to say it, but by their own rules, by their own standards, they shouldn't tolerate that. But I mean, the problem is that that's their entire ideology. They're not going to throw it away. What they'll continue to do is being utterly and totally hypocritical and incoherent and hateful because they can. Anyway, let's see. Oh, here's the Trump bloodbath actual comment. Let's take a look at that.
But he understands the way I deal. Those big monster car manufacturing plants that you're building in Mexico right now, and you think you're going to get that, you're going to not hire Americans, and you're going to sell the cars to us. No, we're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. But they're not going to sell those cars. They're building massive factories.
And they're still pushing this thing that he says it's going to be a bloodbath. He's going to cause a bloodbath, an actual physical bloodbath if he's not elected. They're still trying to sell that hoax. They're not giving up. I mean, they've become so arrogant in their power that they just don't care anymore. Again, I mean, their hardcore audience, the people that watches like CNN or MSNBC or Morning Joe, whatever, every day, they will never learn the truth. They'll never watch the clip. They don't want to. There's no profit in them for knowing what Trump actually said there or getting it in context. There's no profit. How's that going to help them? You know, it might give them a temptation when they hear somebody talking about, oh, that Trump, he's going to murder everybody if he doesn't, if he doesn't become president. There's no profit in them for them to be tempted to say, well, actually, you know, I did see the clip and he is clearly talking about the auto industry, and that's just a commonly used term. So, you know, that's not going to help him out. That's just going to get him in trouble because leftists don't like that. They don't like it. They get denounced when they do that. People get mad at them. No, he's going to murder everybody, and that's it. They need reasons to keep their Trump derangement syndrome. Okay, here we go. Billboard Chris. This video exposes the madness and lies of trans health professionals. Joanna Olson Kennedy, who runs the biggest gender clinic in the world at the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, says an 18-month-old toddler knew they were transgender. That's how fucking crazy these people are. Okay.
The number of transgender people probably hasn't changed, but young people are finding that it's safer to be who they are.
The youngest that I've ever heard somebody express their gender identity being different than their assigned gender is 18 months old.
From the age of about 2, they're brought in, and some are encouraged to do a social transition.
At just 11 years old, she is the brave and beautiful new face of a child born in the wrong body.
The boy wants to play with dolls. Given
just gotta pause it there for a second. She said child born in the wrong body. How does that come out of your lips? How do you even say that without embarrassment? A child born in the how is it possible to be born into the wrong body in the first, like, how is that possible? It's your body. It's the only body you have. How can it be the wrong body? This is the lunacy that you've got these people spouting. I mean, this is mainstream now. Anyway.
The media, instead of just saying, wow, okay, you're just playing around, or it's not a big deal, or maybe you're gay, they rush them to the gender clinics.
We have the largest trans youth clinic in the world.
They are expressing their identities more openly and presenting for medical care.
Puberty blockers at age 12, however, where you're given a chance to get that time that you need to see if it is a real phenomenon, yes, that makes a lot of sense.
She's one of the first to have undergone complete pubertal suppression.
Being able to block that process with these medications is extremely beneficial.
There are differences.
She's talking there about blocking puberty, blocking the healthy development of a child's body. That's what she's talking about. She's talking about how beneficial that is.
Associated with puberty blockers, including less bone density. One study showed reduced spatial memory.
I got my first blocker and testosterone shots at 13 years old.
This does not alleviate symptoms of gender dysphoria.
That, by the way, here was Chloe Cole. Her parents were told that if she didn't transition and go on puberty blockers, she would kill herself. That's what her parents were told. That was the option that was given. They said either have a live son or a dead daughter. That's how immoral and insane it is. Let's continue.
And testosterone shots at 13 years old.
This does not alleviate symptoms of gender dysphoria. It does not improve psychological functioning in these children.
The high suicide rates amongst like trans-identified adolescents, and they basically said, would you rather have a dead daughter or a live son?
Had you expressed any suicidal ideation to anyone?
No, and it was at 15 that I went under the knife to get my mastectomy.
The boys can have their genital surgeries from about 16, and there's some hint that it might even be 15.
Hello, knock knock.
Hello. What's up?
How
we doing?
How's my wonderful family?
Good to see you.
There are, I think, more than 50 in the United States pediatric gender clinics funded by multimillionaires who may themselves be transgender or are transgender.
Jazz has had a very difficult surgical course. She had a very incredible first surgery. It went seemingly very well, but there were problems.
Why are you cutting there?
Right here?
Yeah, why?
Because it's scar, Jess. I don't like it.
Yeah, but there's scar everywhere. If you don't have to
Okay.
cut this, why would you cut
This is what the WPATH standards of care are all about. They're consensus.
Acting like this is all perfectly normal. And she talked about WPATH there. That's the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. There's what's called the WPATH files that were leaked to Michael Schellenberger. I made a video on it. Subscribe to the channel, and you can check out that video. This is the internal communications of WPATH, including Zoom meetings, and it is truly shocking just how obvious. Even they seem to know that it's all just complete pseudoscience and that they're making it up as they go along. And not only that, but they're admitting that the children can't possibly consent. They're not cognitively capable of understanding what they're doing and what it will mean for their future. And they still do it. They still do it anyway. It's completely insane.
And science-based guidelines. Because it turned out tougher than any of us imagined.
lack of growth of the skin and other tissues, which we rely on as surgeons to do this operation. And we don't have the experience of having said we've done 50 of these.
Have 100% of people who've had genital surgery have had post-operative depression.
I told my mom. I kind of just broke down crying to her one night about how this was the biggest mistake of my life.
Something that I always talk about.
They tell you that you're far right, that you're a fascist if you're against this. If you even just just say like, hey, perhaps you should slow down on this. Do you know everything you need to know about this? Is this ethical? Can children actually consent to these life-changing things? These things that seem likely to ruin their lives. You know, sterilizing them, mutilating them. Any of that, you are far right. You are you're a bigot, and you're a fascist. All of that. You're a hate speech. Any of that is just pure hate speech, apparently. That's how insane it is. This is the media says this. That's the media's position. Certainly in Canada, the CBC, any of the corporate media. I mean, you've got some print media in Canada. You've got the National Post is like a corporate media in Canada that is kind of nominally conservative, and they will express some concern about things like this. After that, it's pretty much just independent media. 1 second, James Curtis, $5. Thank you very much, sir. And now I'm recognizing you from, I see your picture now, because it doesn't show up on the streaming thing, the Rumble streaming thing. The picture doesn't show up, but I recognize, I think I liked a couple of your comments on my videos just earlier today. So anyway, great to see you in the chat on the live stream. Anyway, thanks again. To get one more round of applause for that, because it makes me so deeply happy to get money. Let's see, says egos, money, and power driving this madness. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. You know, money, on the money side of that, it's extremely profitable for, you know, hospitals, surgeons, for the pharmaceutical companies, because these are permanently medicalized people. Permanently. Right? Like, even if they decide to detransition later, there's so much damage that's been done to them. They're pretty much permanently medicalized for life, and, you know, a lifelong customer. You know, a lot of time you follow the money and it leads you to the truth, right? One second. All right. Let's take a look in the comments here. Let's see what the internet has to say. Jordan B. Peterson says, prison. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to happen because there's too many people that are complicit. I mean, you're talking about every left-wing politician in Canada, even some of the, you know, conservative ones, I think, are complicit. You're talking about almost the entire media. You're talking about medical associations. There's too much power there. I think what's going to happen is that you're going to have, like in like England has just stopped and banned puberty blockers for transitioning, for kids, for young people. That's obviously who would be using puberty blockers, right? Sweden has done it. They did it before. Netherlands has done it. They've blocked it now. What's happened is they were ahead. They were, like, I don't know, at least a decade ahead on this stuff, on performing these experiments on kids. And now they're just admitting, yeah, this is all experimental. And the data that they do have is not good. It is not good. It's saying that it's either inconclusive or negative. They're not seeing, you know, the promised positive results. And it's clear that it simply is just this has all just been an experiment. All of it. An experiment on children. Let's see. Let's go back to the chat for a second. Jham says, I think YouTube is shadow banning my comments in here. Well, that wouldn't be surprising, but I can read it. Is it coming up on the screen? It says, I've tried 3 times to send a link to a video about, I think links might be a problem. I don't know. I'd maybe have to look in the, might have to look at the back end stuff to maybe change something about that. But I think links can be a problem. Let's see. Antipop says, this is the Q in their little run of letters. Yeah. Well, they got the T, they've got the Q. What is the what is the Q for? Is that, I thought Q was like non-binary, I think, where it's like you're not actually doing anything to your body, or taking drugs or anything, but you're just saying that you're one of the infinite number of genders. You think you're a deer or a frog or something. Frog genders, they think, is a real thing, by the way. You could look it up. You could Google it. Google frog gender. Of course, it's, you know, an infinite number of these things. So you can be anything. The plus, I believe, is just all the stuff that they don't know what it is yet. It's just the random things. Like somebody thinks that, like, their arm is female, but the rest of them is male, you know, stuff like that. Somebody who thinks that they're a twig, you know, or a radio or something. You know, they're just the pluses. They'll get to them later, I guess. Back to Jayham there. He was trying to share a link with a video about a poor 13-year-old girl coerced into a double mastectomy. Jesus. Just unbelievable. It's just horrific. And they say it doesn't happen. You know, they say, oh, it's not happening to kids. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So anyway, Jordan Peterson said prison. And I'm inclined to agree, although I don't think it's actually going to happen. Yes to prison, Billboard. Chris says, the business of child transition is a terrible indictment of the entire human race. So many industries are complicit in this insanity. We should produce a documentary that examines the psychological mechanisms which allowed this to occur and to explode. Yeah, I've been saying to people, just my own friends recently, just, you know, we talk about things like puberty blockers, like stopping children from going through puberty, child sex changes. We talk about it now as if it's just like a normal thing now. Like, just isolate that from all the media. Just isolate it from everything that you hear, all the media and everything, and just think for a second. We're a society that gives sex changes to children. Like, to my mind, you might as well be saying that you know, we're a society that just, you know, chops off the right leg of every, you know, third child born because we're in a cult. You know, the cult leader tells us to do that. It's fucking insane. And it's not the only crazy thing. I mean, like, open borders, right? Like, again, like, our country, like Canada, cannot handle the amount of immigration that we have. It's completely wrecking the country. And this is independent of who's coming. It's just simply, it's resources, it's supply and demand, right? You can't bring that many people in. Our country simply can't handle it. Nothing can handle it. The infrastructure can't handle it. Nothing can handle it. That's insane. Trudeau just a couple of weeks ago was saying that his main job was to convince everybody that that was in fact a good thing. Like, just take that in isolation, right? That's crazy. We were just talking earlier about Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks was freaking out. Looks like she may be leaving the left, maybe freaking out that you had 4 people in New York that were released without bail after they'd been arrested for murdering. I believe they were 2 people in their 50s. I think it was a couple, murdering them and dismembering their bodies. That's crazy. That's insanity. And there's a million more things we could go through. Only this live stream would never end. Okay, so Jayham is saying, could have been my attempts to send a link. Here is the title of that video. So he was trying to send a link through in the chat and it wouldn't go through. And it's like, I think it's a YouTube thing. But it's a video about a 13-year-old girl who was coerced into a double mastectomy. The name of that video is The War on Children, Layla Jane's Detransition Story. So I'm going to check that out myself. And so I would encourage everybody else to take a look at that as well. I've never heard of it before, but I'll certainly take a look. Let's see. Elon Musk says that is evil. These people are predators. They pose a clear and present danger to children. I could not agree more. Let's see. All right. Well, here's one actually about detransitioners, which, I mean, there's going to be a lot of them. Now, it's like up to 90% of gender dysphoric children, and these are kids who have real gender dysphoria. It's not, you know, a kid who saw a TikTok video and decided that, I don't know, they're non-binary or something now, or they're, you know, a hawk gender or something, or they're furry or something. Talking about genuinely gender dysphoric. Like 90% of them just desist naturally through puberty, which makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense because they're given the opportunity to just grow into the only body that they're ever going to have, right? Grow into it naturally and experience that and get used to it. And guess what? It turns out they like it. A lot of them just turn out to be gay. You know, the weird thing about this is that it's a form of conversion therapy. Well, what they're doing is they're taking kids who would just grow up to be gay and trying to turn them into the opposite sex, which would then make them straight. It's quite bizarre. Let's see. James Curtis says Epoch Times produced a doc on child transgenders. That's another one I'm going to try and watch. In fact, I'm going to write it down. Epoch Times. I'm going to write down the name of the other one too. The War on Children. I mean, the problem with this stuff is that it's so heartbreaking, you know? And it's very blackpilling from a perspective of, you know, of your view of humanity. You know, there are people that would seek to profit off this sort of thing, this sort of horror, you know, and just how stupid and docile a society can become. But anyway, let's maybe we'll take a look at this.
I am now 20 years old. I started medically transitioning at 16. I got a double mastectomy before I was on hormones. And then a few months later, I was put on testosterone. This isn't the solution. Destroying my body, my life. I was a teenager. I didn't know better. I'm sad for myself, of course, but I'm sad for humanity and the children. I'm angry. What's going to happen to the kids and the youth? And there's so many, there's so many. When we get 30, 40-year-olds that are going to be like, what the did I do when I was 16 or whatever, and you can't go back. I really, really hope that all these professionals get their friggin' karma, because I know that some of them don't realize and some of them might be brainwashed and whatever, but some of them know exactly what they're doing.
I really feel like some people in the trans community and the trans medicalists and the doctors really, really target the most vulnerable of us. I have borderline personality disorder, and I know for a fact that this is the reason for my transition.
It's heartbreaking to watch this. It is so heartbreaking that society failed these people so horribly, so monumentally. You know, that just good people said nothing. They were afraid of being called names. And that is why this persists, because good people who know better are afraid of being called names, right? I mean, it gets worse than that too. Obviously, people are worried about losing their jobs. Look at Amy Ham, who's been going through 2 years of basically a witch trial. She's a nurse in British Columbia, and she's been going through like a 2-year witch trial with the Nurses Association in British Columbia, because she put up a sign that said, "I love J.K. Rowling." And, you know, J.K. Rowling is that scary transphobe, apparently, far-right fascist J.K. Rowling. So there is danger in it. A lot of people are just, I think that just your average citizen, you know, I think can just say, I don't think I agree with that. You don't need to go on a rant like I do. You just say, I don't agree. You're just talking to somebody. It doesn't make any sense to me. You know, just to kind of plant that doubt. Maybe this is somebody who's just waiting for somebody to give them permission to have these thoughts, you know, and they'll say, yeah, you know, it doesn't make any sense to me either. I think that makes the difference, you know, but let's go back to the chat for 1 second. So James Curtis is actually giving us the name of the Epoch Times documentary on child transgenders. It's called Gender Transformation, The Untold Realities. In fact, we'll bring that up. I should have pinned the other one too, actually. There we go. All right. And thank you for thanking me for my work, by the way. I appreciate it. Also, that $5 is fantastic too. All right, you guys got to give me 1 second. I just need to take another break just for a second. All right, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Thanks a lot, everybody. Okay, so what are we getting to next? What are we getting to next? Time to move on. I'm going for almost a couple hours now. Okay, where were we? Okay. I thought this just sums up Canada. Canadian therapy dog. He's holding a noose because Canada wants to kill you. It's medical assistance in dying, which they're trying to push on everybody. I've talked about this before. I mean, they're trying to give it to like veterans with like PTSD. There was like an Olympic athlete who wanted like a chair or a stair lift. They offered to kill her too. Done to a bunch of people. They're also, I don't think it's actually gone through yet. They keep delaying it, but they want to expand assisted suicide essentially to people with just mental illness. So people that are depressed, you know, maybe you are having a bad time because of all of the free heroin that the Canadian government or meth that the Canadian government's been giving you, and it's just hopeless. So that's the Canadian government. That's the empathetic, compassionate policy of the Liberal Party of Canada to deal with the health crisis in Canada. Just kill everybody. And it's not even, the problem is it's not even like people asking for it. It's they're suggesting it to people. This is the Canadian far left, the Canadian far left empathy in work, at work. All right, so what is this? Unhinged hair salon owner in Portland, Oregon, says she doesn't service police officers, law enforcement, ICE, etc., because they're all racist and make LGBTQ people feel unsafe. So weird. It's the people that are the least well adapted to surviving in a world without like police or prisons or something that are the most against them. Like, how well would this person fare if it was really, every man for himself? If everything fell apart, I got a feeling these people would, go back to factory setting in a heartbeat. Anyway, let's take a look at this.
I don't provide services to police officers. We're going to talk about it today. Hi, I'm Eddie, hairstylist in Portland, Oregon. I've had to enforce this rule recently, and I wanted to talk about it because I want people to know the why behind it. I am one of many people I know that don't provide their services, whether it be hair or something else, to people who participate in law enforcement. So that's not only police officers, but maybe that is guards in prisons and people that work for ICE and things like that. I would like to take a quick second to
First off, if it weren't for social media, if she couldn't tell people what she's doing on social media, she wouldn't be doing it, right? She wouldn't be denying service to anybody, right? Because nobody would know, and then nobody would get to see how virtuous she is, right? Honestly, I think that like the vast majority of people at protests now would not be there if they couldn't post a selfie of themselves on Instagram or something to tell the world about how virtuous they are. But anyway, let's continue.
say that the things I'm about to express are my beliefs and why I choose to do this. That might not be why everybody chooses to do this, but this is why I choose to do it this way. The reason I want to talk about it is because recently that rule was enforced, and I think that when people hear that rule, they think that it's like a FU rule. I personally don't like cops, and so I'm not going to provide service to them because, but that's actually not the reason. There are plenty of people who I do not agree with on many topics that I will still provide hair services to. It is not a prerequisite for me that you agree with everything that I think to come get your hair done by me. However, one of the things I absolutely
I think you got to be pretty close to what she thinks. I'm just going to take a wild guess there.
want to prioritize is the mental health and safety of all of my clients. In this chair, all textures are welcome, all gender expressions are welcome, no matter who you are. I am going to try my darndest.
No matter who you are, unless you're like a cop, probably firemen too. They probably frighten her as well.
Though I am only a human, to make this space accessible to you. And being dedicated to showing up like that for my clients can look a lot of different ways. For me, it looks like making sure that I spend money and time and education on learning how to cut all different textures of hair. I make sure I'm vocal about things that I believe in that are important to me. And one of those things, yes, does mean not allowing members of law enforcement to be in my space. Not just because I don't like them, not even most importantly for that reason. Most importantly, because I truly and deeply believe that.
So, if where she's living is left wing enough, she's going to learn to like them and want them around because, again, shit hits the fan. These people are not. They're not equipped to deal with it, right? These are the people who need like police the most. They just need like competent people around them the most. It's just this weird fantasy world. Is it even serious? I mean, how much of this is just play acting for the camera? I don't know. Let's hear what the internet has to say about it. I hope that it's kind. Let's see. I will never support the business. Let's see. Right. And then when her shop gets ransacked by Antifa, who is she going to call? What a miserable person, attacking police of all people. They risk their lives every day despite being treated like shit by people like her. Now, of course, they're not all great, but you kind of do need law enforcement. You do need it because the world that you're going to be inhabiting, if they're not there, is a barbaric one, where the strongest people are just simply going to go into her business and take whatever they want and do whatever they want. That's just the way it is. Mental illness is real. Peak narcissism. Yes, here we go. Take the hood off. It's just narcissism. Let's see. Well, hopefully when she needs them, they don't show up for her either. Yeah, what else can you say? Just hopefully when she needs them, which if she's living in a leftist enough place, she certainly will. Hopefully they won't be around. And then she can really, just kind of stew in that and appreciate her ideology. What's this? There was once a time when I thought there were only two genders. That's before I learned gender was a social construct and operated on a vast spectrum. In fact, a new one just dropped. Okay, let's check this out. We always enjoy these ones.
I'm a different gender than I would have thought this entire time. I've known since I was 30 at least that I was non-binary. I'm 33 now, right? And this whole time people would be asking, what are your pronouns? And I say, he, they, she, any. I really don't have one. I don't care because I don't think of myself as a pronoun. I think of myself as Jesus. So you would think like I did, like non-binary or they would fit, right? But then I just heard a term the other day that changed my life. Apagender. Somebody left that in my comment section. I was like, what is apagender? Because agender is its own thing and that never fit. So I was looking at it and I was like, apagender. I wonder if that stands for apathetic gender. And I asked them, I said, is that like being apathetic in gender concerns? Yes. It turns out that this is exactly what it is, that you don't really care about gender, that none of them really apply and it doesn't matter if somebody.
Well, that makes perfect sense. So the thing that he's always been is the word he just heard. The made up word he just heard. Well, that makes perfect sense. I mean, how far up your own ass can you possibly get? So, I mean, really what he's talking about there is just personality, right? It's just personality, right? This person just seems to have a terrible one. And I guess you can call it apagender for apathy gender or whatever. I don't know. Don't really care. All I know is that I don't think this is healthy for people. I don't think spending all of your time obsessed with yourself and your gender is necessarily very helpful. I mean, narcissism, right? We're just using the word narcissism. Doesn't seem, again, if this person wants to be this shallow with their life and this incoherent, I mean, whatever. It's just that it's when it becomes like a cultural moment, when it becomes a cultural movement, that's bad for society. That's not good. J-Ham says, I went through a phase where I sought out lefties to have sit-down discussions with. Oh boy, not a good idea. They are very different mentally, shockingly so. Well, I get they're not trying to get to truth, right? So for one thing, their only defense is emotion because they haven't thought about. It's not just that they haven't thought about any of the things that they support, whether it's like, defund the police or whatever, right? It's that they can't think about it. Like, again, it's just, there's only danger there for them, right? Because they if they think about any of these completely incoherent, bizarre ideas, they're bound to have questions. And that can only lead to trouble for them. Because if they express those questions that they have, they're going to get denounced by their friends and called far right, fascist, whatever. Forget, like, if you are one step behind them on the race to the far left, right, you are the fascist. If you just stop and go, hold on, I'm tired of all this leftism. I'm just going to stay here for a second. I'll catch up with you guys later. Now you're a fascist as well. There is no dissent tolerated whatsoever. So, yeah, I mean, they're not going to have a rational conversation with you. They've never thought about it. They can't. They can't think about it, and they can't discuss it. They can't have a debate because they don't know anything. All they know is what feels like it's progressive and left, and that's it. And they're happy with that. So, yeah, they do seem like, like almost a different kind of person, right? Because all they have is emotion. And names that they can call you, ism and ist and all that, and phobe. What does the internet have to say about this? Let's see. It's been a good run, America. A social construct requires acceptance by society. When do we get to vote on it? Never. There was no vote when they decided to call us cis. Remember that? Remember you woke up one morning and it turned out you were this thing called a cis because you didn't think that you were like a bird or something, or that you were like, 14 different genders. Now you're a cis. You just woke up one morning and that was it. You're a cis. They just informed you. The media informed you. You're cis now. There was no vote. There was no plebiscite. We didn't have any say in it. We were just redefined by a fringe minority of weirdos as this new thing. I personally don't accept it. I think that's retarded. I think this cis is retarded. So I don't say it. I also think that frog gender is retarded. I think omnigender, which is all of the genders, the infinite genders in the spectrum of genders, I also think that's retarded. I think it's all retarded, to be honest. Let's see. Seriously, when will it end? Eventually. I'm literally so exhausted. Yeah. Let's see. For someone who doesn't care about gender, he certainly talks about gender a lot. Well, what he's really talking about is himself, which is the only thing that he's interested in. He's been encouraged to be interested in nothing but himself. Let's see. Anything else in here? So I guess that makes me Appa concerned about his pronouns. I learned something today that goes into the bin of things I can choose not to use ever. All right, let's let's continue. Okay, hold on a second. We've got something interesting here from Jay Ham in the chat. Since I am a science nerd, I had to find out what made them so different. So much useful research out there that gives hints at what is going on. Basically, they have developed a parasitic strategy. Well, you know, there's that book. I haven't read it. I do want to read it. The Gad Sad book, The Parasitic Mind. So I don't know if it's going in that direction. But anyway, we'll see on the next comment. Let's see. Alex Jones says the left wants total control of all language by defining everything under the sun as racism. You put yourself in the position of judge, jury, and executioner. So what's going on here? Says deranged rabbi calls real Candace Owens an anti-Semite for using the term hag. Apparently the words hag and witch are anti-Semitic because witches are based on, I don't know. Let's just watch this here.
How dare you go into the misogynistic, the anti-Semitic trope of his hag daughter, something used throughout the late 18th and early through the early 20th century.
Sorry. Hag is now anti-Semitic?
So that is a term of his hag daughter that goes back into the witches of Eastern Europe. Why did you have to call her a hag daughter?
Just
Tell
to
me
be
that.
clear, because she's a witch. I think she's a witch. That's not because she's Jewish. I would call someone a hag of any color. I think she's a witch. What they have done over the last 2 years, I believe his daughter is a hag. I said that because that's what I believe. You may disagree with me on that, but to say that that's anti-Semitic is ridiculous. I would call any person a hag.
Candace, I'm going to be very clear without trying to be insulting. So please forgive me if it comes off wrong. Okay, it's not meant to.
No, it's fine. You can insult me.
I don't want to.
So the guy who's saying that calling somebody a hag or a witch is anti-Semitic is going to try not to be insulting. Okay, let's hear this.
Dealt with 2 years of a rabbi insulting me, so I'm totally cool with this. Yeah.
I have no desire to insult anyone. Okay, but do you understand? Are you familiar with the history of the Grimm fairy tales and the folk tales of Eastern Europe?
I know that we can go back and we can also say
No. I'm asking a specific question.
Okay.
That the witch archetype of those fairy tales were specifically modeled and called the Jew.
We're going back to Grimm's fairy tales. Really? This is so counterproductive. You know, this just across the board, calling everything racist or anti-Semitic. Like the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, has done so much damage to Jewish people, right? Through this just constantly, but for one thing, by being completely partisan, right? So the ADL is just clearly just an arm of the Democratic Party, and using that to attack conservatives. And most conservatives, by the way, it seems to me, are fairly like supportive of Israel, for instance, right? Seems like the left, which the ADL has absolutely been aligned with completely, not so wild on them these days. Seems to be a lot of actual real anti-Semitism coming out from the far left these days. This sort of stuff is so counterproductive and insane. I mean, talk about Grimm's fairy tales, for God's sakes. Come on. Hag and witch. Nobody hears hag and witch and thinks, oh, you're talking about Jewish people. It's so absurd. And I don't know. I mean, again, it's just totally counterproductive to make those arguments. It just, yeah, I mean, for obvious reasons, right? And across the board, your argument against anything is just simply based on the person must be a bigot. Counterproductive. It doesn't work. It just turns people against you eventually. It's a terribly stupid thing to do. Let's go back to J Ham here in the chat. Just try to remember the last time you heard a leftist speak of producing things instead of taking or consuming things. Yeah, they only seem to be interested in the taking and consuming part. It was a successful strategy for them long ago, not so much anymore. And you're right, Gad Sad is over the target on this issue. My concept to look into is the Spiteful Mutant, put forth by Dr. Edward Dutton. Have not heard of it, but maybe I'll take a look at that. Let me just write it down. Okay, I guess I got a lot of reading to do, a lot of videos to watch. All right, James Curtis says that inflated self-importance. Yeah, you're talking about the person who discovered just discovered a word that describes who they've always actually been all along, a made-up word. Yeah, inflated self-importance. That's what it is, right? It's just total inward looking. Just a total lack of interest in anything other than just yourself, basically. Which is sad, because you're denying yourself a lot. The problem with Dylan, the problem with Dylan Mulvaney's song boils down to this: she's rich and white. So that's what this person is saying. Okay, so I think there's other problems with Dylan Mulvaney's songs. Made a video on that, by the way. I think either yesterday or the day before. You can check that out if you like, if you subscribe to the channel. But let's see what this person has to say about it, and I bet it's totally sane.
As a trans person, I need you all to understand that Dylan Mulvaney seems like so far removed from the reality of being a woman, not because she's trans, but because she's rich and white. That's why.
So first off, I can't even tell what they are anymore. Is this a woman or a man? Is it a woman turning into a man or a man turning into a woman? Or is it kind of in the middle? I don't know anymore. I can't tell anymore what's going on here. Kind of looks like a woman in a woman's voice, but then with a mustache. So maybe it's a woman taking testosterone. I don't know. I can't tell anymore.
What womanhood is to her is so unrelatable to you. It's because she doesn't live like the rest of us. She's massively wealthy, and her coming out as trans is what kind of helped shoot her to that wealth. I mean, she lives in a
I'm just going to say she. I'm assuming it's a she. She's actually right about that. Dylan Mulvaney had been on social media for years beforehand, trying all kinds of different things. And it was the trans thing that shot her career forward, shot her career into the sky. It was a trans thing. So she's right about that.
Multi-million-dollar pink Barbie mansion in California. Like, most women can't even dream of attaining that, So I'm not criticizing the way that she views womanhood. I'm saying that it seems so out of touch because rich people are out of touch, because rich white women are incredibly out of touch with reality.
So it's funny how they always try and have it both ways, because it's really impossible. It's the kind of duality of the modern leftist ideology, right? So she's not criticizing how she views being a woman, but then she immediately does and says it's because she's rich, so she can't understand. Of course, this is at base, all of this is just Marxism. It's identity Marxism. So of course it's going to be now an oppressed and oppressor narrative. They can't think in any other way. They've been trained to only see everything as oppressed and oppressor, right? Everything's a zero-sum game with a winner and a loser, right? If you have a leaky, a pipe burst in your house, your apartment, or wherever, right? And you call a plumber over and they fix it, and then you pay them, okay? That's a positive sum game. That's a positive sum outcome. Both sides gain something, right? They're incapable of seeing that. Everything, they can only see every interaction between people as just winner and loser, always. So, of course, the reason that Dylan Mulvaney presents, her video as it is because she's wealthy. That's the only possible reason. Can't be because having been a man the entire life, maybe doesn't really understand. No, it's just she's wealthy. Otherwise, it'd be fine.
She's not going to work every day like most people. You know what I'm saying? Like, her life is that song because she is rich and white. That's it. That's the end of the story. You can wrap up your transphobic takes about this song. It has way more to do with class and race and anything else. But once a trans person does something stupid and out of touch, it automatically becomes about their transness. Because trans people can suck too. Trans people can be stupid rich people too.
It is 100% about that. It is 100%. Let's take a look. Oh, Jesus Christ. It is 100% about the transness. That's why anybody knows who Dylan Mulvaney is. That's why anybody knows who he is, right? It is 100% about that.
Ring the alarms immediately. We have a code pink.
Jesus Christ. That's as much as we can handle of that. I think there's a thing here too where you see, hold on, which is I thought a really weird part to have in this, where you see her go into her medicine cabinet and it's just full of bottles of pills. Where is it? Good Lord. Okay, by the way, comments are turned off. I don't think you can see that on the screen there. Hold on. Can we get it? No, we'll go down that far. Yeah, comments are turned off on this for some reason, for some crazy reason. The view of this, of how women live, seems like a parody by a man who is doing a parody of femininity. This whole Dylan Mulvaney thing just seems like a parody of femininity. That's it. But anyway, let's see what the internet has to say about it. She's a he who is dull and lacks talent in anything other people might be interested in. Look at me. I'm a girl, as if nobody has ever seen a girl before. And if she best represents females, not being one. Yeah. Let's see. I couldn't see past his Terminate Liberals Arnold t-shirt. Is that for sale? Liberate or terminate liberals? Well, the left hates liberals, by the way. Terminate liberals. It does say that. That's a thing that the kind of the nice liberals who, want to be part of all the compassion and everything. That's something that they don't understand. The far left hates them. They want them up against the wall. You try and tell them that, and they just don't want to listen. They don't believe you. They all, well, Antifa is anti-fascist. Okay, they say that liberals get the bullet too. That's one of their slogans. You can tell them, but they just don't want to fucking believe it. Why? Because it's fashionable. They want to be fashionable more than anything. Rich trans, poor trans. Might be a book. Cosplaying a woman made him that money. Let's see. Oh, Silence of the Lambs. They had to go there, didn't they? You know what? I've actually got this in my audio deck here.
Was she a great big fat person?
Yes, she was. Yes, she was indeed. All right. Let's move on. Again, this goes into it pretty well here. This segues into this pretty well. So Elon Musk says most reasonable people, because they are reasonable, cannot believe that the goal of the far left is to end America. So this one works perfectly after that one. Let's take a look.
You're over here appropriating a space for your own personality.
I'm a journalist.
You're not a journalist.
How do you decide who's a journalist?
I mean, considering I was fired as a journalist, you're no journalist.
Literally, would you rather be itchy or sick your whole life?
You're not doing this for like what the actual conversation is, which is getting rid of this country.
Getting rid of this country?
Getting rid of America, getting rid of the West. This is what this is for.
You want to get rid of America?
Yes. Everyone here understands that at some level we need to get rid of America completely.
What should we do?
Decolonization, land back.
Where should we go, though?
In our communities. We need to go leave the capitals, leave the central capitals of commerce, of capital itself. You're over here appropriating a space for your own personality.
Well, there's another one. He thinks they're going to be a revolutionary poet for the rest of their lives. Sorry, comrade. Back to the cement factory. It's so delusional, is it not? But it's, again, like, that's what the far left really believes. These are communists. They're communists. We've been telling you this for years now. These people are actual communists who want to burn down the West and build up a dystopian, authoritarian nightmare in its place. Not nightmare for them. They think that they're going to be revolutionary poets. They truly believe that. They guess what? After the revolution, there's no need for revolutionaries anymore. In fact, they're kind of a problem. That's why they tend to get rid of them afterwards, right? They tend to get rid of the people that are actually good at, getting people to rise up. You get rid of them because you don't need them anymore. They're not going to need revolutionary poets either. They're going to need people at the cement factory, and they're going to need people working 16 hours a day on the communal farm. That's what they're going to need. The stupidity is truly astonishing. I wonder if any of these people have ever read. I mean, they're either ignorant or evil. Because if these people have ever read about like Maoism, they've ever read about like the Russian Revolution and Stalinism, the Holodomor, if they've read, the killing fields, Cambodia, North Korea, if they know anything about it and they support it, they're evil. Right? These are psychopaths who don't care. These are the, got to break a few eggs to make an omelet people. I've often told the story, George Orwell talking to a champagne socialist somewhere in England and talking about the atrocities in the Soviet Union. And the guy said, well, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. And George Orwell said, well, where's the omelet? That's the point. If they're ignorant, well, they're just stupid, right? They're just stupid people who have no idea what they're fucking with or what they want. But if they do know how it's going to go, They're just evil. They're bad people. They're dangerous people. All right, let's keep going. Konstantin Kissen says, I like my coffee how I like my women. Without a penis. Yep. That's normal. So, good Lord, when will they learn? When will they ever learn? LGBTQ plus activist Leslie Headland is the new director in the Star Wars franchise. Her goal for the films, to make it LGBTQ inclusive and similar to Disney fairy tales. When will they learn? When will they learn? They lost, what was it, $1 billion last year on their movies because they were woke trash. Audiences didn't want them. They didn't want their programming and their propaganda, and they didn't want to be lectured to. Yet they just keep doing it. It's just weird, is it not? Let's listen to this.
When I saw Frozen as a grown ass woman, I cried through the entire movie. There was just something about the relationship between the sisters, the like de-villainization of the classic kind of fairy tale bad guy, you know, the concept of true love being between two sisters and not a heterosexual relationship. Like it just destroyed me completely. And I thought, gosh, you know, I would love to make something like this that is, you know, for lack of a better term, Disney, meaning something that like my parents would have allowed me to see when I was younger as a queer person.
Gotcha.
But I would have been able to understand as a queer person. And I think I would have had a completely different life. And so I really was inspired by it and was like, God, I would love to make a.
She would have had a different life, and, you know, she would have had a hard road like she's had becoming like director of a Star Wars movie. Okay.
Story like this. And so when I was developing this original idea to pitch to Kathleen, I thought, well, you know, it can't just be that, you know, when you're pitching Star Wars, you have to pull.
It can't just be that. Can't just be about, you know, being like Frozen, you know, when you're making a Star Wars movie. It can't just be about like, you know, sisters. Right? It's got to, you know, you got to throw in something else, I guess. You know, can't just be that. Can't just be like a weird LGBTQ feminist film.
From what, you know, George was also interested in. Like, it can't just be like, well, I'm referencing, especially if you're going to set something, you know, during the High Republic or end of High Republic into prequels, you don't have the Skywalker saga. Like, you can't reference a character that was created by George and or Filoni. Like, you have to create your own new characters.
All right, so let's go to the trailer for this, and I think it's going to be just like you imagine it will be.
Close your eyes. Your eyes can deceive you. We must not trust them. Tell me what comes into your mind.
Like massive, like a huge pile of money burning is what comes into my mind. But let's continue.
Balance. I see fire.
So girl boss is fighting. Everybody loves that.
Someone is killing Jedi. It doesn't make sense.
What happened?
I sensed darkness.
This isn't about good or bad. This is about power and who is allowed to use it.
What is that?
So strong alien women kicking ass. That's got to be a winning formula. Will they never learn? Will they never learn? Okay. Science fiction, like space opera, like Star Wars, right? That's a male genre that appeals to men, right? The majority of people who want to see this stuff are men. That's it. They're never going to get, parity of women watching these things with men because women are just not as interested. Sure, there are women that are really into it, right? It's just when you look at the averages, right? When you look in the aggregate, it's many less women. It's much less women that are interested in this stuff. So you're going after an audience that just simply doesn't exist and then alienating the audience that's there that wants you to make something good, something that appeals to them. They'll happily give you their money if you can have the slightest bit of respect for them and their tastes, right? Because they are the audience. Those are the people that actually want to see Star Wars movies or Marvel movies or whatever, right? But they just won't learn. They refuse to learn. It's a very Marxist. It's very, blank slate that they can just socially engineer everybody into liking what they want them to like. No, there should be as many women liking Star Wars or, Marvel movies as there are men. There should be. That's fair. That's equity. Let's try and force it to happen. It's not going to work. We're not blank slates, right? Evolution is a thing, right? We are a sexually dimorphous, sexually reproducing species. There are differences between men and women. There are differences in preferences between men and women. It's just the way it is. And you can't, socially construct us out of it. You can't socially engineer us out of that. So just stop doing it and just make content for the audience that the audience wants to see. The real audience, the actual audience, the people who actually are going to end up giving you money. Because the people they're making this junk for aren't going to give them money. That's just the way it is. I don't make the rules. It's just the way it is. I wonder if they've got the comments open here. They've actually got the comments open. Wow. Let's see. What do we got? What comes into your mind? Shareholder lawsuits, stock devaluement. Let's see. Let's see. Close your eyes. What do you see? Disney burning another 100 million. I like this one. Close your eyes. What do you see? I see my mother researching spiders in the Amazon before she died. Yeah, that's Madam Web, right? Madam Web. Another. Oh, that absolutely flopped hugely. Let's see. Close your eyes. What do you see? I see Harvey Weinstein's personal assistant making a bad Star Wars show. Oh, dear. Spicy. Close your eyes. What do you see? I see today's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. That was everywhere for like a long time, wasn't it? Close your eyes. What do you see? I see low ratings. Yeah. That looks really terrible. I have zero interest in it personally. Anything with just even the slightest whiff of woke to it now, I just immediately turn off. I have no interest. I'm not going to go. I've been fooled too many times. Thought, well, maybe it'll be all right. Maybe it'll be okay. And then it's just absolutely awful. Actually, there's one exception. There's one. That's House of the Dragon. which ended up actually being pretty good. There was a lot of, the producers were saying some pretty woke stuff before it came out. And then there's kind of the race swapping thing, which doesn't make any sense at all, but the acting's really good and it's really well written. So that's actually a really good show, and I'm looking forward to the second season. So there's one where, there was definitely the stench of woke around it before it came out, and then it came out and it was just a really good show, and it wasn't actually woke. But
when I saw Frozen
but typically, yeah, anything with a slight whiff of woke, I know it's a lost cause already. It's going to be terrible, and just don't bother. Well, this is weird. Let's see. I'm a gender fluid trans woman. I'm a Christian who has studied Hinduism for over 10 years and is now currently studying and practicing Islam. Can you really be doing all those things at the same time? Are you sure? I'm not sure they're all totally compatible.
Assalamu alaikum. I've gained about 4,000 followers in the last 2 days, and so I felt I should reintroduce myself to everybody who's just joining me in my spiritual journey. I'm a gender fluid trans woman, and I'm a Christian who has studied Hinduism for over 10 years and is now currently studying and practicing Islam. But I remain a Christian, and throughout my journey, I'm sure to remain a gender fluid trans woman and one who looks like this. So I realized that for some people, hearing about transgender issues, hearing about my gender fluidity.
So here's the question I have. If you're a Christian, Hindu, Muslim, trans woman, do you have to throw yourself off the rooftop? Or does somebody else do that for you? I don't know. I haven't studied that myself. So anyway, that was pretty spicy, right? Let's see. Planet Fitness is learning a lesson. Planet Fitness is learning a lesson now in caving to the woke mob and putting mentally ill men's delusions before protecting women. Don't let up the pressure. So we can see a stock drop here. But I've got a story on this from Newsweek. So let's take a quick look. Planet Fitness faces boycott calls from outraged conservatives. Those outraged conservatives, they're so crazy. Let's see, what are those conservatives outraged about this time? Conservative social media users are calling for a boycott of Planet Fitness after reports of a 2023 incident involving a man who allegedly... hold on. Okay, let's start over. Conservative social media users are calling for a boycott of Planet Fitness after reports of a 2023 incident involving a man who allegedly exposed himself to a 15-year-old while in a women's locker room. Well, there go those conservatives again. Is it just conservatives? Really? Newsweek, are we to believe that it's only conservatives that would be concerned about men exposing themselves to 15-year-old girls in women's locker rooms? It kind of feels like they're saying that. What are you saying exactly? Planet Fitness faces boycott calls from outraged conservatives. And all that happened was that a man exposed himself to a 15-year-old girl in a women's locker room. I think I'm with the conservatives on this one. I'm going to say that. I mean, I'm just kind of speechless. It's so weird how it's all been normalized. I mean, Newsweek. This is their headline here. This is how they start. It's just these conservatives that are doing this boycott because, I mean, all that happened was there's a man exposing himself to girls in the change room. That's all. Those conservatives, those conservatives and their outrage. Let's see. Planet Fitness on its website says that it champions diversity and provides an environment where, quote, everyone feels accepted, respected, and like they belong. I guess except for women, right? I guess except for women in the change room. It's so weird. It's so weird. Planet Fitness has been facing mounting scrutiny after initially coming under over a decision last week. That seems wrong. Last week to cancel the membership of an Alaskan customer who reported a man in women's locker room shaving while a 12-year-old girl was present. A spokesperson for Planet Fitness told local media that the customer took an image of a person inside a locker room, which violates the company's mobile device policy and goes against the gym's judgment-free rules. So that goes against the, you shouldn't, I understand, like, not taking photos inside locker rooms. I also understand not having men in women's locker rooms. I get that too. And he's shaving in there. Like, I don't know. What do you people think of this? What do you monsters think of this? What do you basket of deplorables think of this? This seems kind of crazy. I mean, really, I showed you this just for the framing, right? That it's only those conservatives with their outrage that would be concerned about men exposing themselves to 15-year-old girls in locker rooms. Shouldn't it be everybody? Like, I have to think there's lots of people calling themselves liberals who would be concerned about that, would say, well, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right. That seems a bit far to me. No, maybe they shouldn't let that happen. Maybe that doesn't make any sense. But that's not the narrative, though. If you think that's wrong, you're one of those conservatives, those mean conservatives. God knows what else you believe, you know. Clever Swine says, why is a 12-year-old in any gym? I don't know. Kids go to gyms. They go with their parents. You know, is there a pool there? Right? I'm not really sure that's the problem in this. I'm not sure that's the problem in this story. All right. Anyway, let's move on. So Planet Fitness is getting boycotted. So boycotts do seem to be working these days. They do seem to be working these days. It certainly worked against Bud Light and Target as well. They lost billions. Best comment wins. Okay, so I guess I'm calling on you guys. It says here, best comment wins. So I'm going to see what you guys have to say about this. I have a comment myself. So I'll give you my comment first. Hold on one second. I have to get the timing just right. It's coming in a second. Hold on. That never gets old. Never. I'm going to do that on every live stream I do for the rest of my life because I don't know. There's something so juvenile, so sublime in a juvenile way that I just never get sick of it. Hold on a second. I think we need another one. Hold on.
If you could see it from the front, wait till you see it from
Why is that so funny? I don't know. Edgy Pop says eek. All right. Anybody else? Anybody else got something? Got a comment on this? It's your time. Blumpkin from Phoenix. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you in the chat. Blumpkin. That's what I haven't heard before. That's a good one, though. I like it. All right. We're going to hang on for a second. See if anybody else wants to sneak in a comment here. They're all best comment wins. We've only got 2 so far. Should we do the
Keep it juicy, juicy. I eat that lunch.
should we do my sound effect one more time? Let's do it one more time while we wait for somebody to comment.
If you could see it from the front, wait till you see it from the back. Back, back, I keep it juicy.
J-Ham says the moon in trading for the April 8th eclipse. I think that's the winner. Although just simply Eek and Blumpkin, they're close behind. But I think I've got to give it to the moon in trading for the April 8th eclipse one more time. All right. I think we need to do this one more time myself, just for myself. It just brightens up my day.
If you could see it from the front, wait till you see it from the back.
That's the best thing in the world. Best thing in the world. Although that'll probably get copyrighted there because we had the music in it. Damn it. All right. Elon Musk tweeted this. He said, "This is actually happening." So let's see what Elon Musk says is actually happening.
The Democrat open borders plan to entrench single-party rule, explained in under 2 minutes. 1. Flood the country with untold millions of illegals by land, sea, and air from all over the world, enough to eclipse the populations of 36 individual U.S. states so far. 2. Prioritize the needs of these millions of non-citizens over the needs of the American citizen, with free flights, buses, hotels, meals, and phones, ensuring their loyalty to the political party that imported them. 3. Keep them in the country at all costs, even when they commit violent crime like murder and rape. Attack the language used to describe the criminals, as opposed to the criminals themselves. Slander critics as racist. 4. Ensure their privileges are made irrevocable with city and state sanctuary laws that act as population magnets. Codify permanent status and ensure non-cooperation with ICE. 5. Count the non-citizens in the census that will determine congressional apportionment in the House of Representatives. As of now, that would equal 13 extra congressional districts, a tremendous amount of electoral power. 6. Wage a massive, heavily funded lawfare campaign to change state voting laws that legalize mass mail-in ballots, no signature verification, and no proof of citizenship requirements, making it nearly impossible to prove voter fraud. 7. Lock in the permanent voting majority with campaign promises of lavish benefits and permanent privileges, enshrining generational fealty to the Democrat Party. 8. Win elections. 9. Entrenched single-party rule has been achieved. The best part? Your tax dollars are paying for it.
So, I mean, what part of that isn't true? There is no part of that that's not true. I mean, what part of that is not, at the very least plausible, right? In terms of the congressional seats, Elon Musk was just talking about that, and he was trying to explain that to Don Lemon. We won't look at the video now because we're already starting to run a little bit long, but you guys can find it in like 2 seconds. Explaining how in the census, everybody's counted. You don't have to be a citizen, right? So if you just jam as many people in, legal or otherwise, you get extra congressional seats, right? It also, I believe, counts for the electoral votes as well in the presidential elections. So, yeah, I mean, there's nothing in there that I can see that is false. That's not real. I mean, they are what have they jammed in that they know of? 10 million people. Might be another 5 that they didn't catch and then just let in anyway. I mean, that's crazy, right? I mean, I just have to kind of isolate that. You've got the president of the United States who's facilitating a mass invasion of mass immigration, mass illegal immigration into the United States. It's suing states, suing Texas to prevent them from stopping people from going in illegally. Like all this crazy shit is going on. Child sex changes, all this crazy shit, right? And it almost just becomes normal after a little while. People talk about it as if it's a normal thing. It's not normal. It's not normal for the president of the United States to facilitate 10 million people at least going into the country illegally and trying to prevent states from stopping it themselves. That's not normal. That's unprecedented. That's not like a footnote in a history book, 50 years from now. That's an entire history book. It's the enormity of it can't be overstated. How incredible that is. I mean, it is absolute insanity that couldn't have been imagined 20 years ago. I mean, of course, Democrats typically kind of liked having people crossing in illegally, and they'd say they didn't. But now it's just, I mean, they're not hiding it. They're just like, no, we want as many as possible. They're pretty much just open about it at this point, and it's totally insane. Let's see. Clever Swine says, I'm right on the border, and we have construction workers that are obviously African and speak Spanish. Oh, well, that's interesting. That's strange. It reminds me, I just saw something. I don't have it racked up in here to talk about, but something I want to look a little deeper into. Tyson Foods is laying off 1,600 people in one town. Basically going to devastate the town, and they're saying that they want to hire, 60,000 illegal immigrants? 60,000? Because they just like them better? I guess they say they're more loyal? Yeah, well, I mean, I guess they're going to be a lot less trouble, aren't they? I guess they don't have to worry about, vacation days and, raises and that sort of thing. There is so much insanity happening just out in the open. What is your first what is the first thing you think when you see this? I guess is that Rosie O'Donnell? What is the first thing that you see? So I'm going to say trans Winston Churchill. What do you guys see? I mean, it's not pretty. Let me shrink it down a little bit. It's just kind of a depressing picture, isn't it? It just seems like it looks to me like end stage civilization. What do you guys think? Toothache. Bulldog. Does look like a bulldog. That kind of goes along with the trans Winston Churchill thing, I think, a little bit. How would you like that to be the last face that you ever look at before you die? Man, that'd be bad. What a way to go. What a terrible way to go that would be. Just that face staring at you, that awful, miserable face staring at you. God, that'd be depressing. Just point me towards the light. I'm ready to go. It's depressing. I wonder if the internet has anything to say about it, though. And I certainly hope that it's kind. Grumpy old man. Gremlin. When's the last time it was fed? Let's see. Oh, dear. Oh. Is that the typical Biden voter? Yikes. Is that real? Is that like a Photoshop? What is that? Is that a real person? Let's see. Free Dick says that face should be printed on a urinal cake. Oh dear. Oh dear. Spicy, but I approve. What is that? Now I'm fascinated by this thing. What the hell is that? Is that real? Let's see. What's that? Who's that? Is that Bernie Sanders? There's Bill Clinton. There's Barack Obama. It looks like Hillary over there. I don't know. I can't tell if this is real or not. Is that a real thing? I don't know. Let's see. What else we got? Money obviously doesn't buy happiness. No, it can't do that, especially when you are a crazy leftist. So they are unhappy people, it turns out. Let's see. Being kind, I see a very sad and concurrently angry face brought about by her own decisions in life. Let's see. Bill Barr's evil twin. He's kind of evil himself, isn't he, Bill Barr, I think. All her money and Hollywood hype has not brought her happiness. I see a very sad person. Well, I don't know. I'm not a mind reader. I just see an unpleasant face there. I see the face of somebody who I would not like to have a coffee with. All right. Let's see. We're almost at 3 hours. So I was going to show you this Ketanji Jackson Brown thing. Doesn't like the First Amendment. Maybe we'll take a quick look. Tim Pool says, this is not funny. This lady is dangerous. KBJ doubles down. She says, my biggest concern is that your view has the First Amendment hamstringing the government in significant ways. That is quite literally the entire point of the First Amendment of the entire Bill of Rights. Yes, to restrain the government, not the citizens. Scary. So she is, well, she was a lefty.
So my
concern is that she's the one who couldn't say that what a woman was. It was like a congressional hearing, and she said, they asked her, what's a woman? And she said, well, I'm not a biologist. That should have been a red flag right there. But I mean, she was put in to be a loyal leftist, a loyal Marxist, I think. And I think that's what she's doing.
Justice Jackson? So my biggest concern is that your view has the First Amendment.
Hold on. That said, she did vote against, she did vote that, because the Supreme Court did unanimously vote that Colorado couldn't keep Trump off the ballot. So, that was surprising to me. But I think the general expectation is that she's going to be a communist.
Hamstringing the government in significant ways in the most important time periods. I mean, what would you have the government do? I've heard you say a couple times that the government can post its own speech, but in my hypothetical, kids, this is not safe, don't do it, is not going to get it done. And so I guess some might say that the government actually has a duty to take steps to protect the citizens of this country. And you seem to be suggesting that that duty cannot manifest.
Yeah, I think that free speech is now just out with the left in general. They just are now officially pro-censorship, against free speech. I think we can just say that very safely. I missed one here from Jay Ham. It says, talking about Rosie here, I see if a kidney stone had a face. I would say a kidney stone is probably less painful and annoying. Let's see. Apparently dating can be really difficult when you're non-binary and a bearded woman. I'm starting to feel like when you watch these things, it steals a part of your soul, but I think we have to do it to honor our ancestors, to bear witness to this lunacy.
Today, I'm going on my first blind date. Dating.
Hold on. Did he say blind date? Blind date? I am just going to go ahead here and assume this is not going to go well. How much does the blind date know exactly about what he's getting himself into? Or her? Whatever. Who knows? Maybe it's a them. I guess if it's a them, it's probably better, I guess. But, this is why you don't go out on blind dates.
Can be really difficult when you're non-binary and a bearded woman at the same.
Dating can be difficult when you're non-binary and a bearded woman. You couldn't write this. The best comedy writer in the world couldn't write this. Let's continue.
Same time, the response I got from dating apps was not good. I got told I was disgusting a lot. So I'm feeling
Is this comedy? Is this comedy? Is this real? The reaction I got from dating sites was not good. Not good. I'm just going to go on the assumption here that this is not real. This is comedy. Let's continue.
mixture of nervous and excited. But I feel confident about my date seeing my beard. It's not something that makes me feel self-conscious anymore.
Oh, fuck no. Jesus Christ. Get the fuck out of here.
Today, I'm going on my first...
Okay, you know what? I think this was a joke. I think this was, because that clip they showed there was, do you know who Gorlock is? Gorlock, we might have to look for Gorlock. All right, hold on. Let's look for Gorlock. Gorlock the Destroyer. Let's go Twitter. Well, there's Gorlock's Twitter account. Okay, so I don't know if they're gonna have the video of the one I want to show you here. Let's see. Maybe we'll just look up just Gorlock. See what comes up. Let's see. There's Gorlock. And there was a blind date video she did. And let's see if we can't find it. We'll just go back. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna find it. Jesus, there's Gorlock there. Jesus Christ. Only the internet could create Gorlock. I'm not sure Gorlock even exists in the real world. All right, let's go back. But this guy here was on a blind date with Gorlock. And yeah, he took off the mask and went, fuck no, and left. So that makes me think that this possibly, or maybe, well, it's from somebody called the Woke Mind Virus. Maybe this is real, and then somebody just clipped that in. I don't know. What do you guys think? It's hard to tell what's comedy anymore and what's not. What's a joke? Kind of felt kind of sincere. JM says you better be blind to be on that date. Yeah. Yeah, that would help. But you'd still have hands and like a sense of touch, which would also be a problem. So I don't know. I don't know if that was real or not. Let's continue. I mean, it was funny as hell. Here we go. James Lindsay's laughing my ass off. Laughter, the new symbol of the far right. Oh, fuck. They never stop. First, it was like milk. Then it was being outdoors. Then exercising. Literally, all those things are white supremacy now. Like hiking is now white supremacy somehow. Jesus Christ, they never give up. I mean, I thought they'd actually already called every single thing in the universe white supremacy. But, you know, it was right under my nose. Laughter. I forgot about laughter. Well, they got it now. Laughter. Authoritarians don't like laughter because they see it as a weapon against them. So they don't like people laughing. You know, there's an old Soviet joke. When they pretend to pay us and we pretend to work. They hate that kind of stuff because it does have a power to it, right? So let's see what else we got here. All right, we've already seen that one. I thought this was interesting. From Elon Musk posted this good summary on the history of slavery. So here's Konstantin Kisin. This is really good stuff to know because the left, they have been brainwashed into thinking that white people invented slavery. It never existed before. It's totally crazy. They know nothing about the trans-Saharan slave trade. They know nothing about the fact that more slaves went to the Muslims, the Arabs, than ever went across the Atlantic. They don't. Slavery predated any white person being in sub-Saharan Africa by like a millennia, right? You know, they didn't just show up and just start hunting people in the forest and rounding them up. No, there was a slave trade already existing there, where African kingdoms were raiding other African groups and African tribes and taking them as slaves and selling them as slaves. It existed there forever. Slavery has been around as long as there's been people. But anyway, let's hear Konstantin talk about it here.
This self-criticism that we see about the nation, why is it that in Western civilization we have so much trouble with nationhood?
You've spent 60 years teaching your children to hate your own civilization. Why are you surprised that they hate your civilization? Sorry, but that's what's happened.
It works.
It worked, and absolutely. And by the way, it's not just hate. It's hard to teach people to hate. What's much easier is to lie to them about history. So in the UK, for example, in England, there's this. We have the Church of England, I think, has just approved £1 billion worth of reparations because we talk endlessly about slavery, and the narrative on slavery in seems to me to be, there was no slavery, and then the British Empire came along and invented slavery, and then woke people came along and ended slavery. When, of course, we all know what actually happened, which is slaves were probably the first good that human beings ever traded. Never had anything to do with racism, by the way. It was a fact of life that conquered peoples would be subjugated by others and used as labor and would be traded. Native Americans kept slaves, and so did everybody else throughout history. The British Empire practiced slavery just like everybody else because of their superior technology.
Just want to interject for a second here. So, like in Canada, left-wing politicians, the media, academics, they have what I call atrocity envy, because they look down to the States enviously at like the Trail of Tears and the history of slavery down there, and that didn't really happen in Canada, and it makes them sick. It makes them sick with jealousy. They wish they had that. It'd give them so much more to lecture Canadians about. I mean, they do nothing but lecture us anyway about bullshit that we didn't do, right? About made up stuff. But they lust after that. They just wish they had it. They're trying to find any injustice in Canada's history all the time. Even they just have to make stuff up. But slavery was in Canada, in what is now Canada, before the people that we call Canadians were here. Before Europeans came to what is now called Canada, slavery existed all over the place because it was the indigenous people enslaving each other, right? Also warring constantly and often trying to genocide each other. All that existed before Europeans ever came to Canada. So anyway, that needs to be said.
Advantage, they were able to move slaves across oceans in the way that others weren't. And then the British ended slavery, not only within the borders of their own realm, but also spent a tremendous amount of blood and treasure to force the trans-Saharan slave trade, which was much worse, lasted longer, had a higher death rate. The men were all castrated. The women were taken as sex slaves. They forced that slave trade to end at tremendous diplomatic, military, and monetary cost. And so, this idea that we must eternally apologize for the sins of the past seems to me absolutely ridiculous. Now, does that mean we shouldn't recognize that those things were bad? Yes, of course we should, and we should acknowledge and learn from them. But it seems to me very odd. I made this point in the book. I have a whole chapter on slavery in it, which is, imagine if you have to, that, 50 years from now, we're all going to be vegan because they get their way, right? Because eating animals is this terrible crime. Would we then say that the people who ended that practice were the most evil in history? That wouldn't make any sense at all. I think we would say, well, this is the first empire in the history of the world that ended this practice we now consider immoral. Good on them. And by the way, did so for moral reasons. I mean, the abolitionists in England were people who were motivated by a different morality that was developing, which said something about the value of the individual. So the idea that we would denigrate our history in this way, to me, seems absurd. And
See, the thing is, for the modern left, is that their goal is to burn everything down, so that they can rebuild their warped vision of the future on the ashes of the old world. And they need people to have a inauthentic, distorted view of reality for that. Because if you don't hate your own culture, you don't want to destroy it. Right? So they need to lie. They need to make shit up. They need to come up with these absurdities about, white people are the only, are uniquely responsible for all the world's history, all the world's ills from the beginning of history and beyond, right? They need to create these bizarre lies so that they can take control, so they can gain power of all the institutions and just wreck the whole thing. And then in their minds, they think that they're all going to be revolutionary communists. No, half of them are going to starve to death, and the other half are going to be working in the cement factory. But anyway, let's keep going. We're getting a bit late now. We're over 3 hours in. Let's see. Okay, so here's Peter Hitchens masterfully exposes the farcical nature of net zero to the absolute dismay of BBC Question Time panelists and audience members. So let's hear what he has to say. This is the brother of Christopher Hitchens. Yeah, this is an argument I make in Canada all the time, is that because, of course, the Trudeau administration and the NDP here are obsessed with climate and with fossil fuels and emissions, right? The truth is that Canada could disappear off the earth tomorrow. All of it, all industry, everything could disappear off the face of the earth tomorrow, and it would not change the global climate one bit. We can't. We simply don't contribute enough to it in the first place, right? We're at about between 1% and 2% of the world. Again, as he said, China's building new coal plants constantly, a couple a week. I think it's actually even more than that. Canada cannot change global climate. Neither can the UK. Neither can the Netherlands. You put them all together, it still won't make any difference because it's Asia, it's India. It's a totally pointless exercise. The wise thing to do was that if there are going to be changes that we can anticipate, well, then you prepare for those, with like engineering, levies, that sort of thing. And maybe you take another look at forestry policy, that sort of thing, right? Those are the sane things that you can do. And while you're doing that, you could maybe be replacing some of your own coal plants with maybe like modular nuclear plants or something. That would actually do something. I mean, it wouldn't change the world climate. That's not going to, but at least there'd be less pollution where you live. So that'd be all right, The problem is with a modern technological civilization that it's all about energy. If you don't have it, you don't have one, right? If you don't have it, if you don't have lots of energy, lots of cheap energy, you don't have an economy. You don't have a high-tech technological civilization. You don't, because it just comes down to energy. Lots of abundant, cheap energy. So what are the things that are going to create the power sources for the future? Because, wind isn't going to do it. Solar's not going to do it. We're not there yet, right? But if you have a wealthy technological society, who knows? Maybe you're the country that can create cold fusion or something. Who knows? But that's the only thing you can do. Again, Canada or the UK could just disappear off the map tomorrow. Both of them could. Won't make a fucking bit of difference. It's not going to change the global climate at all. It's a completely pointless fool's enterprise. So that's what he's getting at there. And I agree. You might be able to tell. Let's see. What's this? The greatest ex-community note of all time. Well, what's that? Slate put this out. It needs to be said, Sydney Sweeney's boobs are not that big. Readers added context. Yes, they are. And they are. They're a great size. I like them. Blondes with big tits are back. And I'm here for it. I'm all right with it. I don't know what you guys think. Probably fine. Well, I guess you guys are okay with it. Let's see. Woke people more likely to be unhappy, anxious, and depressed. New study suggests. James Lindsay says, filed under no shit. Well, how happy are you going to be if you spend all of your time looking for imagined injustices everywhere, microaggressions? You know, microaggressions. I mean, that's the most retarded thing in the world. That just seems to be invented just to make people unhappy. Just imagining that literally anything anybody says to you, you can imagine is some sort of an insult, some sort of an aggression, a microaggression, an aggression so small that you wouldn't even know it existed if somebody didn't tell you, if your professor didn't tell you, if TikTok didn't tell you. What an utter waste of energy. Of course you're going to be miserable. Of course you're going to be miserable if the entire world of every interaction that you have is a oppressed oppressor narrative, right? Is an oppressed and oppressor dynamic. There's only winners and losers, you know? Of course you're going to be miserable if you see the world that way. If you can't imagine that, there's positive sum games where both parties win. You know, you need somebody to build a deck at the back of your house. You hire somebody, they come over, they do a good job, you pay them. There's a positive sum game right there. Everybody wins. Plumber comes over, fixes a burst pipe. You pay him. Everybody, he's done a good job. You pay the money. Everybody wins, right? That's a better way of seeing the world. But woke people don't see the world that way. They just see it purely as this constant contest between oppressor and oppressed. Always. So how could you be happy in that world, especially when you're constantly looking for the microaggressions? You're looking for that thing that you're supposed to identify so that you can denounce somebody else as an ist or a phobe. That's what you have to do. You have to be, it's not enough just to be not racist. You have to be anti-racist. And so you've got to be actively looking for it. Doesn't really matter if it's there or not. As long as you accuse somebody of it, that's enough. Right? And the other side of that coin is, of course, everybody's watching you all the time. All your woke friends are watching you all the time, just waiting for that opportunity to denounce you, to take down one of their own, to show their own virtue by essentially betraying you. That's got to make you unhappy. Always being careful of always being worried about what you're saying. You might let something slip that might sound offensive. It might be a microaggression, even if you didn't. You might do a subconscious bias. Can you imagine that? That's not going to go over well at the woke party. So yeah, I mean, it seems to be just a recipe for misery. It's like a guidebook for misery. Not to mention, I guess, all of the you have to go worry about your gender and all of that. What are you really? How could anybody possibly know? I guess you got to go through all of them, find out which one fits you best. You got to research all the different genders to find out what the thing is that you've always actually definitely been. I've always been a tree. I understand that now. I've always been a squirrel. Now I understand that, but I always have been. Yeah, it seems like just a routine that you would want to put somebody through to destroy them, to make them miserable, to steal all the joy out of their life. Can't think of a better way. Let's see. JM says the global warming science, in quotes, happened to overlap a little bit what I studied in college, so I researched it a little. It's 100% garbage. You know, I'm kind of inclined to believe you on that. It seems to be, I mean, anytime that you have incentives, and in this case, it seems like kind of perverse incentives to me. Like, if you're in that field, you know, the climate field, there is one thing that you can believe. If you want to get like grant money, for instance, if you want to get any money at all, if you want to get any kind of funding, there's one thing that you can believe. There's one thing that you can say. You can only assert one thing. If you don't, you're out. Like, that's heresy. So you've got, and of course, if you are the most apocalyptic, right? Well, that's more funding. Right? If you put out the scariest view, that you get more funding, you're more popular. So it seems to be kind of a perverse incentive there. To, I don't know, maybe cherry pick, maybe to avoid things that are inconvenient, avoid things that saying them is going to cost you funding. It's going to cost you money or prestige. I mean, it seems kind of obvious on the face of it, doesn't it? That you would run into that problem, that there would be an obvious incentive to be corrupt. So I don't know. That's how I feel about it. All I can tell you is that the word expert has taken a beating the last while, and for good reason. So we talked about this earlier. Puberty blockers, also known as sterilization drugs, this is from Elon Musk, will no longer be prescribed to children in Britain due to potentially severe negative effects. One thing I neglected to mention, I've talked about this in my videos a million times, and please subscribe to the channel and you can watch all my videos on this stuff. One thing I neglected to mention earlier when we were talking about this is that there's a clinic called the Tavistock Gender Clinic in England, which has been since shut down. This was after 1,000 parents filed a lawsuit against it. 1,000 parents. This is a clinic that put their children on puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. And 1,000 parents said that their children were damaged by this, and they weren't honest about it. And since they've admitted that it's all just experiment, it was all just an experiment all along. That they were pretending was established science. It turns out it's all pseudoscience. Again, check out my video on the WPATH files. Goes into that. All right. So the other question though on this is, okay, so it's not just Britain, it's Sweden, it's the Netherlands. I believe they're making similar moves in France. There's a bunch of countries. The question is, when will the US and Canada pay attention to this? Like, when does it become too obvious? Is it just simply when there are too many lawsuits to ignore it? When you have a situation like where you had at the Tavistock Clinic with like 1,000 families? Is that when? I mean, Justin Trudeau is all in on this stuff. And I don't think he gives a shit of what happens to kids. I don't think he could care less. It's just politics for him. He's not going to back off this stuff anytime soon. I mean, it would have to get really serious. It would have to become extremely politically damaging to him for him to do it. That's the only reason he would change. And he would do it happily, and he wouldn't care, and he'd have the exact opposite view from what he's been telling us he has. When Justin Trudeau says that Canada has no core identity, I believe he's talking about himself. But again, when will we catch up to what they're doing in Europe by banning these things? You know, I don't know. But you know, certainly every year is going to cause God knows how many tragedies that we hold off. So I don't know. Anyway, let's keep going. All right. This is what a passionate Biden supporter looks like. He speaks for many of us. So he likes he wants to be ruled over by an insane Demented person. Okay.
If Joe Biden fell down the stairs of the Air Force One plane, landed on his neck, broke it, fucking died, and was carried around like Weekend at Bernie's, he'd still be a better president than Trump. If Joe...
Well, let's face it, he's probably going to do that, right? That's probably going to happen. Let's see. Jaham says, you're asking the perfect question. When do we notice and push back? Well, that is the question, though, right? Because I mean, I think the writing's on the wall. It is going to happen. This is all going to go away. I think it'll go away quietly. I don't think it's going to go away loud because there's so many institutions, so many politicians, the media have been complicit in this insanity all along, right? I think there's a lot of people who are up for a lot of blame. I think it's going to go away quietly. I think they're going to quietly step away from it and just be like, oh, you know, what are you talking about? We never did nothing. There's going to be, we thought we were going with the best science that we had at the time, which is bullshit. Yeah, there's too many people complicit to send them all to prison. That's not going to happen. Too many powerful people. They're not going to allow that to happen. But anyway, let's keep going here. Oh, here's another one. Let's see. Marriage. So it's now marriage that promotes white supremacy. According to, of course, a white university professor. Because nobody else ever got married in human history. That doesn't happen in any other countries. What was the other one? We had another one. I can't remember what it was now. It was something else that caused white supremacy. Where was it? Oh, laughter. That's right. New symbol of the far right, which basically is just synonymous with white supremacy, apparently. So laughter and marriage. So I guess a married couple laughing is like, that's terrifying to the left now. It's indistinguishable from satire at this point, is it not? I think the left is actually trying to kill satire. It really is getting harder and harder. We've had problems watching just on this live stream, figuring out real or not real. Like, is this actually a crazy person or is this somebody making a joke? Is this a comedian? It's getting really hard to tell, is it not? What else we got here? Well, what is this? The most evil man in the Biden regime, bar none. So let's take a look.
What are these wristbands?
I don't know what they are.
You don't know what they are. Mr. Secretary, you have just testified to the American people you're incompetent at your job, because I've been to the southern border, and if you go to the southern border, along the southern border, you see thousands of these wristbands because the illegal immigrants wear them. The drug cartels, every color corresponds to how many thousands of dollars they owe the cartels. You have turned these cartels into multi-billion-dollar criminal organizations, and these are modern-day leg irons, because these are children being sold into sex slavery, and you don't even know what they are. That is astonishing. Mr. Secretary, how many children have been sold into sex slavery under your administration?
Senator, we are taking it to the cartels.
How many children have been sold into sex slavery? Do you know how many children have been sold into sex slavery?
To an unprecedented degree.
Mr. Secretary, I want to say to you right now, your behavior is disgraceful, and the deaths, the children assaulted, the children raped, they are at your feet, and if you had integrity, you would resign. And I will tell you, the men and women of the Border Patrol, they've never had a political leader undermine them. They despise you, Mr. Secretary, because you're willing to let children be raped to follow political orders. This is a crisis. It's a disgrace. And you won't even admit this human tragedy is a crisis.
What the senator said was revolting. I'm not going to address it.
He is just the banality of evil, isn't he? You know, just a guy doing a job, you know, just happens to be an evil job that's harming, millions of people. He's just the face. He's just the face of the banality of evil. Really incredible. Don't even really know what to say about it. I mean, it's so depressing. It's so depressing. The consequences of what his regime is doing are so awful, are so inhuman. And yet, just, whatever. I'm not even going to respond to that. Really? I mean, you're doing great evil. You're doing great evil. No, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I don't know what to say. What do you say? Let's take a look at what the comments say. Actually, it's Biden. Well, Biden is the figurehead at the top of it all. Then who's actually running things? It's anybody's guess right now. I mean, I think actually probably, I'm not even sure that Trudeau is his own man. I'm not sure of that at all. I wonder if he's just a figurehead too. Let's see. What do we got here? Oh, so here's something from a while ago. Schumer and Pelosi speaking against illegal immigration. Well, that'll be interesting.
While we need to address the issue of immigration and the challenge we have of undocumented people in our country, we certainly don't want any more coming in.
Illegal immigration is wrong, plain and simple. Until the American people...
Well, I didn't know they were white supremacists. I mean, isn't that what they call people who say the exact same thing now? Pretty sure that they do. They call them far right and fascists. Jesus, 85,000 missing children and counting. Jesus. People are genuinely evil, I think. Let's see. The fact he doesn't want to address it just proves Cruz was right. That's what is revolting. Yeah. Just right in front of everybody's face, too. It's awful. I think that's the last one. So let's maybe take a look at the chat and then we'll wrap things up. Let's see. Looks like the Rumble chat stopped showing up in my feed in the studio here after about 3 hours for some reason, but I've got the Rumble website open, so I'll take a look there. Okay. Here's where was that? Hold on, we got to bring one back up here so you know what I'm talking about. Here we go. This one here. We weren't sure if this one was a joke or not. If it was real or a joke. Saying that it's hard to date when you're a non-binary bearded woman, which certainly sounds like a joke. Friedrich said, if it is a joke, then I like this fat bearded lady. Yeah, if it's a joke, I mean, it's that I like it too, but you can't tell anymore. It's basically impossible to tell. What do we got? Let's see. All right, I think that's what we got there. And let's see. Jham says, so I sit up late and write code and often put your channel on. I am curious. What event made you decide to start your channel? And I'm glad you did. Well, I started it after I got sober. So I wouldn't have been able to do this if I had not quit drinking. So, and it's a very good thing that I quit drinking, let me tell you. Which I've not had trouble with at all, to be honest. And I was leaving Las Vegas drinker, but I woke up one morning and I opened my eyes and I knew I was quit, and that was it. Now that was at a rehab. So the worst rehab in the world. I'll tell you guys that story another time. But I woke up one morning and I just opened my eyes, and before I opened my eyes, I knew I was done. And that was, 6 years ago. And I've never even been tempted, to be honest, ever since, which is a miracle. My friends didn't think I'd be able to do that. And I was far past functional alcoholic at that point. So I got sober and I was appalled, and I'd always been like a lifelong liberal, right? I believed in like free speech, but I also believed in like free markets and stuff. I liked some kind of socialist policies, but I liked, I liked universal health care in Canada. I was kind of just a typical traditional liberal at that time. And then as I saw the left going more and more insane, and really it was the attack on free speech, where the left just made it clear they don't want free speech anymore. They're about censorship now. And that was for me the line in the sand. And I went, I can't do this shit. I can't go along with this. So, and then I've kind of been on a journey since, of becoming, a lot of my views have changed. I've been exposed to some new ideas and stuff. I'm certainly fiscally much more conservative than I was before. In some ways, socially more conservative. I certainly never would have gone along with like sex changes for kids and stuff. I mean, everything that the left was doing, they were going so far left so fast. I just, it was like, I can't get on board with this shit. Right. But it was really, so my political views were already changing. And it was just a crisis of conscience, because I'm watching what's going on and I'm going, this is crazy. And I'm ranting to my friends about it and my family. And I thought, well, I got to do something more. So I thought, well, I'll start up a YouTube channel, see how that goes. At least I just won't be driving my friends and family nuts. So yeah, and I started about 4 years ago, and I just kind of keep going. Even though I have not had massive success at this yet. I know on YouTube, my channel is suppressed badly. And there's just no other way around that, even like my life, I mean, I've got 12,000 subscribers. I don't think my subscribers are seeing my live stream feed. And I know they don't see a lot of my videos. And then also people just get unsubscribed. It's kind of a mess. But yeah, I would say it was the attack on free speech was really the crucial event for me that got me active, that activated me. Because without free speech, you've got nothing else. Like, you got no democracy, you've got nothing. You got no other rights if you can't argue for your rights, right? So free speech is the main thing. You don't got that, you got absolutely nothing. You are fucked. It's only a matter of time, because they'll chip away at everything from there. So that's that. And we're 3 hours and 38 minutes. So, and I've run out of stuff. So we're done. So this Friday, I'm not going to be able to do a live stream. It doesn't look like. There's maybe a slim chance. If there is, well, maybe I'll see you guys on Friday night. Oh, J-Ham is saying crisis of conscience is completely understandable. Yeah, I think a lot of people have been having a crisis of conscience. It's either you've got to act or not, right? You got to do something. I don't think that my YouTube channel is going to change the world, but it can do something. Can have some influence, right? It's better than just screaming at the wall. But yeah, so Friday, slim chance, but a very slim chance I can do it. Otherwise, probably won't be till next Friday will be the next opportunity that I have to go live. But if not, well, maybe you guys will see me. If not, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing, to be honest. It's kind of all up in the air over the next, week and a half. So we'll just have to see. Hope you guys all have a great week, great weekend, and look forward to talking to you next. Thanks to everybody who's been in the chat. That makes everything way more fun for me. I really enjoy it. See you guys next time.